Hello, you are listening to Trump Republic Radio. It is July 2nd, 2017. I'm your host, Enzo Quesada, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Bobby Hester.
Hello, everyone.
And this week, we have on the show two guests, two guys that have been on the show many times, Kris Celera and Sam Montoya.
Здравствуйте. Hakuna Matata.
So, you want to head straight into the national news with the big story this week,
Let's
Bobby?
get to it.
So, the biggest story I think to come out of this week was the Supreme Court reinstating the travel ban, which what countries were a part of the ban that were upheld?
The countries that were part of the ban were Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen.
Which is a huge victory for Donald Trump. We've been fighting this in the courts since the very beginning of his presidency. The initial one was shot down in, what was it, the Ninth Court of Appeals?
The first one was shot down from the Ninth Court of Appeals. This one was shot down by the
second one was.
Yeah, this is the second one. It was shot down by the Fourth Court, I believe, and the Ninth Court, because it was appealed from one to the other before it went to the Supreme Court. Now, keep in mind, the Supreme Court has not actually ruled on its constitutionality. All they're doing is allowing it to go in place for now, with the exceptions that they placed on it. Now, what the exceptions they placed on it was as long as people could prove that they had a bona fide relationship inside the United States prior to the ban going in place. Now, that includes if people are going to visit their parents, their children, their in-laws, and I believe it was their brothers and sisters, or if they have a business interest that they could also prove that they had beforehand, meaning they pretty much had to work for somebody.
Fiancé, they just added that late.
And fiancés as well? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much they have to prove that they have someone in the United States before the ban went in place that they're trying to visit. Otherwise, if you just wanted to come here, you're not coming in.
So everyone on the Supreme Court upheld the decision to reinstate the travel ban, which is one of the big things, because you'd think at least like Ruth Bader Ginsburg would be against this, but no, because this is something on the books, from the very beginning, a constitutional thing to do. But the Supreme Court's going to hear in their final conclusion on this matter in the
October.
Fall. Yeah,
in October.
So the ban is currently in place, so there is no more travel from these 6 different countries. When does the ban end, in October as well?
The ban ends October 2nd.
October 2nd.
Which is also around the same time that the Supreme Court should be ruling on it. So that's why it's such a big win for us anyways.
Yeah, that'll be like a double victory.
By the time it's over, even if they were to somehow rule against it, we would get our stuff.
Because also, they kind of gave it even... I can't say they wouldn't, right? We don't really exactly know. But what I believe from the people who are dissecting the ruling that they issued, they gave them a pretty strong saying, like, of course, the president.
Yeah, they did.
9-0, you know what I mean? It's not like these liberal Supreme Court justices became supporters overnight, So... It's a good job. Good win for justice there, for sure.
And, when this does go to the Supreme Court, I feel very, very confident that we'll win. But the big thing about this for me is after the Supreme Court ruling, we'll be able to do this for any country pretty much. And, I mean, it's already within President Donald Trump's power to do this, but we could continue doing bans indefinitely. We could pick new countries to do this. And with that precedent set, no one's going to be able to fight it. That's the big thing. You have to look in the long term. We're going to do this all the time if the Supreme Court goes our way.
And even if in their ruling that they released in October, even if they rule that they have to have that bona fide relationship claim as part of it, which if you remember, I think it was Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, and Neil Gorsuch, I think they even argued that they didn't even think the bona fide relationship should have been part of it to begin with. But even if the Supreme Court rules that the bona fide relationship has to be there, yeah, you're absolutely right. We could put that in any country we want. Theoretically, we
as long as the president gives a reason why he's doing it.
Yeah.
His reason is because these were countries selected by the Obama administration as threats for security risks for terrorism, which is why he chose these countries.
I mean, you could theoretically put it on Canada or Mexico, but we're not talking in theoreticals here.
Originally, with the first one, Iraq was a part of the ban, but since then it was taken off because they've fixed their vetting practices there. Now, I don't know how truly good the vetting practices are going on there. I mean, it'd be better if they were banned as well. But getting the 6 countries that we do have on the list off the table, and still very good.
And you know what? Even if in October, if they roll our way, you can add Iraq back onto the list if you don't think that it's good enough. So
it could go straight back on.
Just wait 3 months and then we're good.
Kris, do you have some thoughts on the travel ban?
Y'all just pretty much hit all the points. It's just waiting to see where the Supreme Court will lie on this. But there is a substantial difference between the federal court and the appeals courts. There is less judicial activism. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg, one of the most liberal justices, she advocates for having objectivity. And I remember not too long ago she actually apologized for being political on the bench in regards to Trump. And there's a lot of people who argue about, oh no, what if the liberal justices vote for this way? These people, even Elena Kagan, who is arguably the most liberal of all of them, I believe that they will refer to their training the descriptive form of judging versus the prescriptive one. But I'm not going to get too much into it.
Yeah, going into this, I wanted Ruth Bader Ginsburg to recuse herself from that case.
She said that she was going to quit if Donald Trump was president, or she was saying she was going to go to another country, wasn't she?
I'm not sure exactly what she said, but she did make comments against Trump, saying that, this is racist, blah, blah, blah. But as you said, she's apologized since then.
Yeah.
So, but even still, she was one of the ones, they all voted 9-0 to let it go into place. So we'll see what they say in October. I personally think it'll be either a 5-4 or a 6-3 when it's all said and done. But like I said, I still think we'll easily win it.
Yeah, I'm not too worried with this. Do you want to go into the stuff with Twitter that we have to talk about?
Yes. So we have a new Fox News poll that's come out saying that 71% of Americans believe that Donald Trump's tweets are hurting his agenda, compared to only 17% who believe that he's helping it. Now, this also comes after the tweets that came out this week about Mika Brzezinski, who Trump's kind of gone after.
Which has been the biggest story that the media's been pushing the most. I mean, they haven't been talking about the travel ban the last couple days. But, yeah, President Trump has been embroiled kind of with the battle with the fake news a lot this week. And, I don't know, the uproar over the Mika Brzezinski stuff, it said, she had like a facelift and
she
it
was
bloody.
Bleeding badly from a facelift.
You can look at the photos where this is, but it's just like what did he do? What I don't understand what he did to harm anyone with this tweet. Like he doesn't like him, so he's saying mean stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, and also part of it he called her low IQ. And then in a more recent tweet that he posted the next day, he said that she was, quote, dumb as rocks. Yeah. Which, I mean, she kind of is if you ever actually listen to her.
Yeah, she is. She's kind of like a puppet type lady anchor. But, a face that is looks good with a facelift. But here's the other thing, though. These guys are way on the not innocent side themselves. If you want to talk about a feud, celebrity feud or something like that. Did you guys see Joe Scarborough's music video?
No, I didn't watch it.
No? Okay,
I heard about it, but I didn't watch it.
Yeah, well, it sucks, definitely. But I watched it a couple times so that I could make sure to get the message they're trying to put out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but...
And, no, well, the subtext, because I don't know if Trump either got it himself or was told this by somebody. Like a younger person who could understand the context of the music video, because it's a lot of different images. There's a journalist reporting on Trump. They hide this into the story, but you see it at the end. And basically, Trump assigns a Secret Service detail type men to go and hunt her down in a black van or white van or whatever with their weapons and just assassinate her.
Yeah.
And she's like a CNN type journalist, and throughout Joe Scarborough's video, the journalist again is like reporting on Trump until she goes around the corner and gets popped and assassinated by the Secret Service detail. So they're already pumping a lot of this beyond the pale negativity. And so I'm sorry I have to be in that 1% of people who just think everything Trump does is hilarious, but I love his tweet.
Yes, and not to mention that Mika Brzezinski, she has had a much severe infraction, not with Trump, but with Hillary Clinton. Back in December 9th of last year, when she hinted on the Morning Joe show that the Clinton campaign may not have this election in the bag, that there was certain arrogance about Hillary Clinton's campaign, she actually received a phone call from the Clinton campaign condemning her, and she made this call public. She said that the Clinton campaign said that that her message was inappropriate and they wanted her to be pulled off the air.
Yeah, but there's also more to this poll that was taken. It also said that they asked the question, do voters consider the president's online posts official statements? Now, that one was only 51% said yes and 45% said no. Personally, for me, I don't think that his tweets from his real Donald Trump account are official statements, whereas his tweets from his POTUS account are official statements. That's how I personally view it.
And I mean, they're all going to be like categorized in the Smithsonian forever or whatever for record purposes. But I agree. I mean, we're tuned differently to how politics is here in America. They see Trump. There was even another poll, I don't know if y'all are going to talk about this later, where the whole world is basically losing faith in Trump and in America, whatever.
No, but I know the poll that you're talking about. The majority of people outside of the United States do not trust the Trump administration.
Yeah, whatever. Again, what he's doing is not necessarily official. It's not necessarily, type of things like you kiss your mother with that mouth type of conversation. But these people do things as well that have never been done in an unprecedented way. But because there's a consensus among the mainstream media to just, treat Donald Trump as like a cancer or in a way that's unprecedented, we have a sort of a celebrity feud on a grand scale.
And speaking of celebrity feuds, that also comes into Trump's tweet that he had this morning, which I think is probably one of the best tweets he's ever put out. And if you haven't seen it, then you should have seen it by now. But the tweet happened was it was the video, the very famous video of Donald Trump at a WWE event.
It was from WrestleMania 23.
Right, when he tackled Vince McMahon. But they photoshopped the CNN logo onto Vince McMahon's face. So Trump's, body slamming CNN and pretending to punch it in the face and walking up and looking victorious. Everyone has seen that video, and so now there's a connection there because it's a meme by now. It's definitely a meme. It's a very good meme. These are good memes.
I mean, that is a meme.
You should explain meme just briefly for viewers who don't know what a meme.
Oh, okay.
Can we save that for another time? We got a lot of stuff today.
Is it that long to say?
Yeah,
Okay.
but
memes are.
But the point is, the last time
Trump really understands memes. We can agree on that.
I don't even think so.
You don't think so? Because
No.
he reposted something that was pretty epic. I mean, I think he understands.
I mean, it
memes.
made him laugh because he doesn't like CNN. And that's the thing.
But the point being, though, is that tweet he posted this morning, as of the time we're recording this episode, has over 300,000 likes on Twitter. I think that's one of his most liked tweets ever. And this is coming, people were talking about,
we're not even done with the day yet.
Yeah, and that was just this morning at like maybe 8 o'clock or so. But if you think, and the reason that we wanted to talk about that was because of the fact that, the fake news is saying that, this is advocacy of violence. Not to mention the fact that they've been advocating for violence against Trump supporters for the last 2 years, let alone, the fact that there actually has been violence against Trump supporters in ways that Trump supporters have not even come close to doing against anyone else.
Which, Kris, did you have a good point about how they're playing this up as like advocacy for violence?
Yeah. CNN is hypocritical when they play it as this advocacy violence, as this attack on the press. And if it's tweets, which is a mockingly done WrestleMania fashion, if that advocates violence, then how about Fareed Zakaria? I can't really pronounce that last name, but he is a host of one of CNN's shows, GPS, and he is one of their bloggers, and he has his own tweet that says, on May 31st, 2017, if you're in NYC, go see Julius Caesar, free in Central Park, brilliantly interpreted for Trump era, a masterpiece. It's the same controversial play where there's a man in Trump's likeness who gets assassinated quite vividly in this public play.
And you know, that's also just like what happened when, God, what was her name?
Kathy Griffin.
Yeah, when Kathy Griffin was holding up the beheaded photo of Trump, you know, all her advertisers almost immediately cut her support. CNN didn't even say anything about it until the next day when they fired her, after all the uproar that got unleashed.
That was, to me, the worst thing CNN did, and that's just who they are culturally, because it doesn't take 24 hours to fire someone. If something becomes big enough of a storm, you can fire them within 30 minutes and do paperwork later. You know, they really did feel the water, and then we're like, oh, crap. Everybody thinks this is bad, so yeah, they cut her.
And you know, we've got a lot more to talk about CNN later when we bring up Project Veritas, so we'll get to that when it comes.
Yeah, but I guess let's just go around the room for a second. What is your personal opinion on Donald Trump tweeting? Do you think that he should continue? Do you think it's useful or not? Sam, do you want to start?
Sure. I think it's the best. I think he needs to maybe tweet a little more focused, but depending on what he wants to do, because at this point he definitely is guiding the news cycle, you know, and at first when he was tweeting, the media didn't want to allow him to guide the news cycle. Now they've become a little bit more used to letting him do it. So I guess since he has a master plan with you know, his agenda in mind, which is keeping his promises so he can win this election again in 2020, I would say full steam ahead till his fingers fall off, till they bleed. Keep tweeting.
For me personally, you know, I do support him using Twitter because a lot of people don't want him to be using it at all. I do think that some of his tweets bring a lot of unnecessary negative attention towards him. In that regards, I do think he should be a little bit more cautious with you know, what he tweets about, his word choice, and that sort of stuff. But that being said, he does know that this does drive the media cycle, like you said, and especially when he put out that Mika Brzezinski tweet, it completely dominated the news cycle. No one was talking about the fact that the House passed those two immigration bills, Kate's Law and the No Sanctuary for Cities bills. No one talked about that.
No Sanctuary for Criminals Act.
Yeah, and so by doing that, you know, he was able to take a lot of pressure off of Congress for doing something that would be considered controversial. Instead, put it on himself. So I think he, in a way, is willing to at least take the fall a little bit in order for parts of his agenda to get passed.
Kris, what do you think of Donald Trump tweeting? Do you support it or not?
I believe he should exercise a lot more tact. I'm not saying that he should pull his punches. No, it's just his punches should go when it's necessary.
Yeah. I think for me personally, like, I don't use Twitter, so I don't really have a frame of reference for it. But I've seen him in circumstances where it's useful. I mean, the biggest circumstance of that is when he tweeted James Comey, you better hope there's no recordings of this, because it made him be honest. And he didn't have to, you know, have any evidence. He just said, you better hope there isn't. And in that way, it does sway, you know, Comey to testify honestly to where you might have not.
You know, actually, that's a good point, because in Trump almost looking like a bully or somebody who hits below the belt with talking about a facelift, the next tweet from Mika Brzezinski was of her talking about his penis size. That was the next tweet.
Well, she made the little hands joke. It wasn't specifically the penis one. It was the little hands.
You don't know that's what that means?
No, I know what that is, but it was specifically talking about the little hands joke. It was not talking about penis size.
No, that's what that means.
Yeah, keep going.
No, okay, well, for instance, I don't know. I mean, Trump came out at the debate and was like, look at these hands. There's no problem there. He wasn't literally talking about his hands as much as his penis size. That being said, yeah, that's who she is too. You know what I mean? So they want to try and say they have a high horse. No, bro. Everybody knows. I watched The View. They're the ones that said it were talking about his penis, okay? And The View can be right a little bit of the time. and those ladies said I would not have tweeted joke about his hand size because that's below the belt as well. That's below Mika Brzezinski's standards. Whatever.
Yeah. So to bring it back to what my viewpoint on just him tweeting is like I do think it is a detriment. Oftentimes, he does start feuds that he doesn't need to, and he does call out people when he doesn't need to. At the same time, he does it, so I don't really know. I mean, his tweeting doesn't really offend me. I saw the tweet this morning. I thought it was funny. I talked to my dad on the phone earlier today, who's a Republican. He doesn't like Trump, but he wants Trump to do well, and he said, did you see this? It's stupid. He doesn't need to do this stuff. He should be above this. And to a degree, I do agree. And I don't think he does need to be tweeting so much. But it does hold a lot of power, and it does break up media cycles very well. Donald Trump understands media cycles in a way no president ever has. So when he does want attention away from certain things, he does start tweeting about things to pull it away, just as you were saying about the 2 immigration bills that were passed. So, I can't stop the president from tweeting. He's going to do it. I don't think anyone in the world can. He's got the most valuable social media account in the world. But I just hope he can have a little more tact when to use it and when not to. But do you want to go into now with where the health care bill is at, Bobby?
Yeah, let's go into it right now.
So the Senate has delayed the healthcare vote until after the July 4th recess. Do you have some stuff on this, Bobby?
Yeah, Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader, he made the decision to delay the vote on the Senate's version of the healthcare bill until after the July 4th recess. Now, the reason he did that was because he wants to win, and as the bill currently stands, they don't believe that it was going to pass. So they wanted to make changes to it. And they also didn't want to rush it, which is something I've been saying for a while. I don't want them to rush it. I want them to take their time and get it right. But we also have another poll that was actually taken, and this was also a Fox News poll, that said that only 27% of people view the Senate's healthcare plan as favorable. So you have a lot of negative attention towards it, and a lot of people don't like it. And they didn't want to rush and pass something that they knew would probably come back to haunt them.
Do you know what the unfavorable numbers for that poll were?
Well, it said that 27% of voters are in favor of it, 54% oppose, and 18% are unsure. And obviously, you can see that was split on party lines to a degree, but even among Republicans, it was essentially 50-50.
Yeah. I don't really have a favorable opinion of the bill either, which is why I'm very hesitant about them passing it. I do want Trump to actually have some sort of legislative victory, but I don't think this would be a victory in the long run. To put his name, Trump Care, on this would be bad for him.
Yeah, and, Trump, like we said, talked about him tweeting. He's tweeted support of it. But that being said, he called a meeting earlier this week with every single Republican senator came to the White House, and he talked to them about the health care bill. And Senator Rand Paul even posted on Twitter after the meeting was done. And what he said was, I just came from the White House. Donald Trump is open to making the bill better. Is the Senate leadership? So even you have some Republican senators calling out the leaders of their own party, saying, look, the president wants this to be done right. He's willing to compromise. Why aren't you doing anything? And to me, it does seem like Mitch McConnell and those guys, they're not, I don't think that they have our best interests in mind. I really don't. I'll say that right here. But that being said, I am glad that the bill is being postponed, or not postponed, but it's being delayed in the vote for a few more days.
I've been seeing a lot of talk because, Donald Trump ran on replace and repeal, or repeal and replace. And now that I'm starting to hear the rhetoric of repeal and replace later.
Personally, I actually think that's probably the best idea. Because everyone wants it to be repealed. The Republican Party is unified on that regard. They're not unified on how do you exactly replace it, what do you do. So what I think, what would be a big victory is going ahead and just repealing it and then replacing later.
I don't know if that would be what Donald Trump would necessarily want. Because long-run politics, they're going to get him on the fact that his rhetoric was repeal and replace, or he would even say repeal and replace almost simultaneously you know, which makes you feel like maybe within that week. But if you do like repeal this year and replace next year, people might freak, and then but also it'll cause some political, you know, ammunition for the other side come 2020.
I mean, people are freaking out. That's the thing. I mean, the healthcare industry is in a death spiral in a sense. Okay, health insurance providers, we have so many states that are just down to one, and there's so many protests constantly you see, especially coming out of the left. They're just like, if you cut Obamacare, I'm going to die, or whatever. And it's hard. There is no real good solution to this. There's so many different interests in this. No matter where you slice it, someone's going to be hurt and someone's going to be helped. That's always, you know, the difficulty when you're the one in power. You are the one that has to take the fault for the decisions. And the GOP, as we've seen so far from the Trump administration, they don't know what it's like to be the ruling in power. Okay, we've spent the last 8 years outside of that. And now that we have power, we see, you know, the biggest opposition to Donald Trump is the Republican Party. And trying to work with them to get this health care bill passed is so disunified. I have no idea what they're doing at the moment. So I think we should just let this bill fail. Let's do something else. Let's get into tax reform. You know, like Trump said many times before also, we could just let Obamacare fail. And yeah, that'll be really bad for people, but there's no good Band-Aid to put on Obamacare at the moment. And the way that the bill is proposed at the moment, you're not repealing Obamacare, really. You know, bringing up Senator Rand Paul again, he said he'd vote on the bill if it repealed 80 or 90% of Obamacare, but it doesn't. So maybe just repeal Obamacare and do that. I know that would satisfy his base a lot, but if you don't have any sort of replacement bill, it's going to be difficult. The vitriol and the media are going to play it up so hard.
And also another problem is a lot of the people, you know, maybe not so much in the House, but in the Senate, you got the midterms coming up in 2018. If you screw that up and it gets even worse, that's going to hurt you for re-election. So that's another reason why they want to, you know, get it right.
Yeah, so we do have a very small frame of window to work on this, because if we leave this undone for 2018, this could really hurt a lot of races for us. So I don't know. I mean, we on the show have proposed what we would do. I mean, I've looked at the bill, the first bill and the second bill. I'm not so sold on them so much, but we'll just have to see where this goes. I guess we'll find out after the July 4th recess. So
let's move on to the next story then.
So we just quickly wanted to touch on this. Trump is going to meet Vladimir Putin in person for the first time next week at the G20. Do you have the exacts on that, Bobby?
I mean, that literally is all we know so far, is they plan on just meeting.
What day of the week is it happening?
The actual G20 meeting?
Yes.
It's multiple days long.
Oh, okay.
But
So we don't even know what day they're going to be meeting?
We don't know the exact day, but it's going to be next week. And keep in mind, this is going to be the actual first time that either of them have met in person.
Yeah, they've talked on the phone a couple times, but they've never met in person. So I can already predict this now. This is going to be one of the biggest stories of the week next week. And the media is going to freak the hell out. And the left is going to freak the hell out. And it's going to be insane. Because, you know, they already make the jokes about, oh, Trump's in bed with Putin. They're best friends that make out with each other. That's certainly not the case. But him even meeting with him in person is going to play into that stereotype they draw.
And we don't know what they're going to talk about when they meet. You know, like we said, we don't even know the exact time when they're going to meet. So for all of that, we'll just have to wait and see.
Hopefully it's about sustaining peace in the Middle East. I don't know, maybe removing economic sanctions for Russia. That would be pretty good. But again, we don't know what they're going to talk about.
Yeah, so we're not going to speculate on too much there, other than telling you, you know, wait for it, you know, keep an eye out for it.
But should we get into the next thing, or do you have a point to make, Sam?
I just hope they give each other a bear hug in front of the cameras. That'd be hilarious.
The photo is going to be amazing. That's one thing. I want to see the photo of those two guys together.
Yeah, I think I can already tell you that I'm going to add that to my frame collection.
But let's get into the next thing that we're going to talk about. So the Trump administration is going to be cutting funds for UN peacekeeping. This came out earlier on Thursday, with UN Ambassador Nikki Haley tweeting about it. Just 5 months into our time here, we've cut over $500 million for UN peacekeeping budget, and we're only getting started. One of the big reasons why they are opposing this is because they feel like a lot of these organizations fund into terrorism, and they kind of go against a lot of... They're doing this for a lot of reasons with pertaining to the United Nations being anti-Israel. So I don't know. In general, I just don't want dollars going to international organizations like this to begin with, so I'm fine. I mean, I'm not a stickler about this Israel stuff at all, so...
And if you remember, in his first month in office, Trump signed an executive order asking for a, quote, at least 40% overall decrease in U.S. funding for UN organizations that they don't like. So this is actually going right along with that.
So, and, you know, Donald Trump talked during the campaign that he was going to pull us out of, you know, he's at least going to lessen our influence in the United Nations and international organizations. So, I mean, he's doing what we sent him to Washington to do. And, you know, like Nikki Haley said, we've already cut $500 million, $500 million that would be sent to do who knows what can be spent in the United States. I mean, that's a win, okay?
Do you think that this will change the UN's perspective on Israel?
No, I don't think so at all.
I do think what it will do is, you know, if they know that much of their funding, which that's a significant portion of the funding that they receive, especially for that specific regard.
And they're just getting started.
You know, they know that, okay, what we're doing, you know, we don't want this funding to be cut even more places. We should start doing what the U.S. wants more. So that's my thought on it.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if what would trigger that? Okay, now we're doing what you want, U.S. Wouldn't that be something? Because they did that resolution that Trump was upset about with Israel.
Yeah, and the more they do that, the more funding we cut, the more they're going to realize, let's not do this.
So they would have to change their, you know, frame of thought for Trump to say, okay, now we're back at the table, we'll give you more funding, or if that's what he wants to do. But again, I agree with Enzo. Really what people elected him for was to, you know, drain the swamp in a broad scale. But if that's his red line, he's got red lines. And we know that when people cross them, he's serious.
And you know, foreign countries and organizations like this, they have been listening to Trump. And we're going to get to that later when we talk about NATO and the international news portion. So we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have much other to say about this other than I'm really glad that he's cutting money to the United Nations. You have something about...
Oh, just a little tidbit. The Human Rights Watch has criticized United Nations peacekeeper forces for several allegations of rape by the peacekeepers themselves, including a few instances of gang rape. So these are organizations that don't even properly vet their own people, so why should we give money to them?
Yeah, these aren't the Boy Scouts. But let's get into the next thing that we have here, Bobby. On the Commission on Election Integrity asking for voter rolls and election data from all 50 states. Now, this is a continuation of the executive order that Donald Trump set at the beginning of his administration that he had Kris and Mike Pence working on, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. And what they're doing is they're asking all 50 states to give several pieces of information about their voters, including their names, their birthdays, the last four digits of their social security number, as well as their voting history dating back to 2006. Now, from what I understand, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. That doesn't necessarily mean they want the actual records of, like, you know, who they're voting for or any of that. They just want, you know, when did you vote? What elections did you vote in? That sort of stuff. I don't think that should be all that controversial at all, you know. But what it said is they're looking just for publicly available voter roll data. And the definition of publicly available is actually different between states. And from what they've said, the letter that was sent to the secretaries of state of all 50 states, they said, if it's the publicly available stuff under the laws of your state, we want it. If it's not publicly available under your state's laws, you don't have to give it to us. So it's not that they're demanding things that aren't legal in those states. They're saying, look, give us what you have, what you legally can give us.
But there has been a lot of pushback to this, which we've seen. Currently, there are 29 states that are opposing giving their information on voter registration to the Trump administration. One example that I just want to go into with some quotes was from Kentucky Secretary of State Allison Gunderson Grimes, who's a Democrat. Quote, "The president created his election commission based on the false notion that voter fraud is a widespread issue. It is not." She went on to say, "I do not intend to release Kentuckians' sensitive personal data to the federal government." So it's insane, you know? They just say it doesn't exist, so we're not going to give you the numbers? Well, are you hiding something?
Yeah, this should be one of those clear-cut cases, you know. I really don't like to use the argument, if you have nothing to hide, then, you know, like, why hide it? But that kind of is true here, you know. You're talking about voter rolls, just lists of names of people and, you know, their social security numbers. You want to prove if these people are going to be voting in federal elections, the federal government should know who they are and make sure that they're allowed to do it. You know, that, you know, you'd think that would make sense.
Which, if you're a consistent lawyer to the listener to this program, we've gone over so many instances where we find voter fraud. Even in Texas, we found many, what was the study last week, where potentially 5.7 million non-citizens voted in the 2008 election. Okay, don't come here and say that this just doesn't exist. And if it doesn't exist, oh, why is it so hard to prove? It's insane. Yeah, they are hiding things. Okay, they complain about, oh, doing stuff like this is voter suppression. It's really just a half and middle that, yeah, we would be suppressing the vote, but suppressing the vote of people that shouldn't be voting.
That's right.
But this benefits Democrats to do. I mean, we have another story this week in Current Year College craziness related to, like, illegitimate registration. Am I correct, Bobby?
We absolutely do, yeah.
It's insane. I get really frustrated with this stuff because, you know, if it's so easy to prove that there's no voter registration or voter fraud, why can't they do it? But I really think that they're bluffing here in the end. I don't think that they'll be able to hold back this data the entire time from the president.
No, I don't think so. And so far, they said only 3 states are 100% saying that they will give all the information that the federal government wants. Because we said 29 states are refusing to do it altogether. Only 3 have for sure said yes. The others haven't really responded to it yet. The 3 that said yes, Wisconsin, Colorado, and Texas.
Nice.
So I figured Texas would be like 100% behind.
Yeah, I figured Texas as well. I'm surprised
if Colorado
Wisconsin
said yes, I think these other left states should kind of get behind it.
I mean, Colorado and Wisconsin, you got 2 swing states right there.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. My opinion, if these people don't want to cooperate, we'll just sue them. Like, it doesn't. We're not doing this anymore, okay?
But the last point I want to make, I'm not sure about Colorado, but what do Wisconsin and Texas currently have? Voter ID laws.
Voter ID laws.
A lot of those states don't. So
now Wisconsin, because I'm a Wisconsinite, they didn't have it for a very long time, and it was fought back very hard. But I believe they just got in time for the 2016 election. So.
Yeah, and didn't their voter participation rate actually go up after they introduced it?
I don't know about that.
It was either, you know, because of it or despite it. Because I know that, you know...
causation is not correlation.
Yeah, causation is not correlation. Wisconsin did have an increased amount of votes, but that was also because of the fact that it was a swing state, too. So,
who knows?
I'm not going to say it was definitely because of that, but let's move on to the next thing that we had to say.
So, you want to talk about some of the stuff that's happening in the economy, Bobby, right?
Yeah. The first thing I wanted to mention now, this has to do with the fact that, you know, Trump promised jobs coming back all over the place. And we've talked on the show a lot of different jobs opening up, coal mines opening up, that sort of stuff. So we're just going to go just with one example here today of some more jobs returning. And that's BMW currently has a plant in South Carolina, in Spartanburg, South Carolina. This is where they build almost 450,000 vehicles a year. So it's a pretty decently sized plant. But they said that they're increasing the number of jobs there by 1,000. So that's 1,000 more jobs coming to a manufacturing plant.
1,000 jobs that will be part of the jobs report as well.
Absolutely. And, that's pretty much all I wanted to mention in that regard. But that's just one more example of the many that we've already covered and the many that we haven't covered about jobs returning to the United States in big fashion.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of plants opening up, but we also have we've cut a lot of, reporting on our factories as well. I mean, just in general, the manufacturing index is at a 33-year high. So manufacturing is doing very well, and this is indicative of Donald Trump as the president.
And I can guarantee you one thing. If you're a person who is unemployed, who wanted to get a job at a factory, and you have a job now at a factory, I'm pretty sure the last thing that you care about is Trump tweeting.
No, you wouldn't care. Do you want to go into the next thing you just have on some poll numbers?
Yeah, there's, I feel like today's poll day or something. But there's one more poll that we have released, and it says, this is a Gallup poll, and it's pretty basic information, but it says 61% of Americans favor drastically cutting taxes.
Which is what Donald Trump is proposing, which
Yeah.
is what hopefully the GOP will move on to, which they say they are going to, don't they?
Yeah, that's what they said. That's next after healthcare.
It's insane that number is not higher, but I know a lot of people think that Trump's going to just use the tax cuts for his Trump organization.
Well, you have to look at it this way, though. Half the people in this country don't pay taxes. It doesn't benefit them to cut taxes.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of people in this country that just
There's a
freeload.
lot. You're right. It's sad how high that number is because you feel like it's not so high when you're in your little bubble of people that might work or go to school, etc. But there's a lot of people who
Yeah.
just live off welfare.
And another point that I wanted to make in bringing up that number is, if you notice, a lot of Trump's policies, the favorability of his individual policies all seem to be right around 60 or so percent. Like, I know we were against the Syria strike, but that had 57% approval. Trump cutting taxes, 61% approval. Trump's economic agenda had like 64% approval. Yet his approval ratings apparently, anywhere between about 35 and 50, depending on who you look. So that's something we've brought up this point on the show before. People like Trump's policies. They just don't like him.
Yeah, that's always what it comes back to, which is why I always feel like quiet weeks means that it's a successful week for Donald Trump. Which, if you took out the Mika Brzezinski stuff, this would have been a very quiet week, which means very successful week. I mean, there's a lot of good news happening this week. Legitimately, I feel.
Have you been checking out the Drudge Report poll, though? Or did you already talk about that?
What poll?
All day long, they've been doing like a live poll on Drudge. Looks like 362,000 people have already voted.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
Where do you think Trump should delete his account or keep tweeting? 76.36% say keep tweeting.
And that's from a right-wing base of people
Sure.
saying that.
Right. I would say also there's a lot of independents that definitely go to Drudge Report too.
It's also an
Maybe.
unscientific poll. I voted in it 4 times already.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
No, I not even.
you can
trying
just
to
reload the
vote.
page and vote again.
No,
Yeah.
for sure. But in the end, I mean, there's still a massive amount that keep saying delete, and they could keep voting too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at 85,000 people have already voted say delete your account.
Yeah. Let's go into some of the tech stuff that we have. So I was the one with the first tech story this week, just because it's kind of fun and interesting. So the first robot bar has opened up in Las Vegas. Robot bartenders. So it is at a... Bobby, you actually have a lot of experience going to Las Vegas. I've never even been there.
Oh, I love Vegas. I go at least twice a year.
So do you know where Planet Hollywood is?
Yeah, it's one of the main hotels on the Strip.
So they opened up this bar at the Miracle Mile Shop at Planet Hollywood. It's called Tipsy Robot, and they have 2 robot bartenders there. So how this works is they keep iPads on the bar, but you can also have an app that's called Tipsy Robot, and you pay for your bar, whatever order you want on there, and it will send you an email. Now, in the email, you'll get a QR code, which you're going to put over a window at the bar, and that tells the robot bartender, hey, this is my order. Now, the robots, they have 60 different kinds of liquor, and they can pour a perfectly mixed drink, no spills, no overuse of ingredients, within 70 seconds.
I'm going to have to try that out next time I'm there.
Now, this is more of like a tourist attraction. They say that the average price for a shot, if you use the robot, is $14. So I'm not doing that. But yeah, it is kind of interesting though. They have robot bartenders now. Maybe there's going to be more in the future. I don't know. You know, if right now it's just a gimmick to get people in the door, because they say they have around 72,000 people coming in a day. So the robots probably help with that attraction level, but who knows if this isn't something in the future.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. If it's successful and they increase more of them, that price will drop, you know.
So I guess next time you go to Las Vegas, since you go so much, you should go try and see where this robot bar is.
Yeah.
But what if that did take over the profession of bartending? That would really affect a lot of people, because honestly, there are some people who take it to like a great profession, being the kind of bartenders they are.
Okay, one, in the article it says that this is a novelty, and two, this is dumb automation. It is not. They cannot maintain. It cannot maintain a customer base. It doesn't inspire customer loyalty. This is particularly a service industry. Until we can get robots that are emotionally stable, or get the robots to bring the cost down to where people who are going out would prioritize price over people, it's not going to happen anytime soon.
The automation of bartenders is decades down the line, probably.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, literally all this, you know, I've looked at the pictures they have. It's pretty much just like an arm. All it's really doing is saying, okay, you want this drink, which means I need to mix these three things together. Pick it up, pour, put it down. Pick it up, pour, put it down. It's very, very basic. It's very, very simple. And like you said, it is a novelty. The reason people go to it is because it's like the only one in existence. They think it's cool.
And these are the same people who can shell out $15 per shot, so they're not too particularly concerned about price.
Well, here's the rule about Vegas that my dad and I have believed for a long time. They know that they are ripping you off, and you know that they are ripping you off, but nobody cares, and everyone has a good time. Everyone benefits.
I mean, I could see myself if I was drunk enough and I saw that there was a robot bartender. I'd probably drop some money just for the
And you don't have to
fun.
tip a robot.
Yeah, you don't have to tip a robot. That is a thing. I mean, still would be cheaper if you're just tipping a real bartender, but...
I mean, my dad doesn't even drink, and I'm sure he would be like, yeah, sure, let's do it. I just want to see it happen.
But they say just around the corner of this bar, they also have a bar with actual bartenders. So if you don't want the robot, you can just use a real person, so... But let's go into some of the space stuff that you want to talk about, Bobby.
Yeah. So what Trump does, or what he did this week, is he's signed an executive order reviving the National Space Council. Now, the National Space Council was last in effect in 1993 before it was shut down by President Bill Clinton. Now, if you remember, when Trump earlier this year, after he was president, he signed the budget for NASA, and he wanted NASA to go to Mars, you know, by 2030, and including another moon mission in 2019, which would be the 50th anniversary of the first moon landing. Now, Trump said, today's announcement sends a clear signal to the world that we are restoring America's proud legacy of leadership in space. And he says, our journey into space will not make us stronger and more prosperous, but will unite us behind grand ambitions and bring us all closer together. But what was interesting is that former astronauts Buzz Aldrin, Gene Kranz, and Benjamin Drew were standing with Trump when he did it. And what the executive order does is when in reestablishing the council, it's being led by VP Mike Pence. It also includes the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of Homeland Security, as well as the head of NASA, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the National Security Advisor, and the Director of National Intelligence. So you got all these people are now coming together to revive the National Space Council, which is a very good segment into the next story that I wanted to talk about, which is the U.S. is currently planning to create a Space Corps as the sixth branch of the armed forces. This would literally mean that in the future, we would literally have, like, you know, people would join the military specifically to serve in outer space. That's essentially what the end goal of this is. And that would be also, it would be the first new military branch since 1947 when the Air Force was created. But what a lot of it is it's kind of wanting to reorganize the Air Force because they currently control all of our space stuff, like satellites and that sort of stuff. So it would reorganize that into that branch. Now, they haven't actually created it yet, but they're saying that's what our goal is to do. And, yeah, that's pretty much what I had to say about that. So I'm actually looking forward to that. I would love to have us have Space Marines walking around in spacesuits with space guns and space lasers on our moon base that we were going to create. But, yeah.
In the future, will you be able to just sign up for the Space Corps then if it's its own corps?
You would specifically sign up for the Space Corps to serve in outer space. That's essentially what it is, just like you joined the Air Force or the Marines or the Army today.
And I wonder if they may like start to enlist from like other branches first before like just civilians are like, sure, I want to go to space.
Well, I mean, like I said, part of it's reorganizing, what the Air Force currently does. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of it would be Air Force guys, but that's at its initial creation. But 10, 15 years after it's created, guys are going to be joining it. Like when the Air Force was created, it was first the Army Air Corps. Those were Army guys, and the Air Force was after that. So.
Yeah, if you don't join for the Space Corps, I don't think you can expect to be going to space, but, I mean, maybe you'll be like a technician or something.
Yeah, just like, if you join the Air Force, it doesn't mean you're going to become a pilot. It could be an
That's
aircraft
reserved for officers.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean you're going to be a pilot. You could be an aircraft mechanic. You could probably be a personnel guy that's going to sit behind a desk all day. So, there's lots of different jobs, especially in space, there's going to be a lot of technical jobs that go along with that as well, reading computers.
And we don't even know what space warfare is going to look like. I mean, maybe we're going to have space generals in the future. Fighting off aliens.
Let's move on.
Yeah. So, let's get into some immigration news.
Open the door! Immigration!
La migra, vamos, niños!
This week in immigration.
So the first thing that we want to talk about with immigration were those two House bills that passed. The first one being Kate's Law, and the second one being No Sanctuary for Criminals Act. The first one, Kate's Law, which it passed 257 to 157, having one Republican voting no. That was Justin Amash, right, Bobby?
Yes.
And then 24 Democrats voted yes. Now, what this bill does, which it has to go through the Senate, obviously, first, before it becomes a law, but this will increase the penalty for it's repeated deportation of illegal aliens.
What it does is, if you are a person who has previously been deported, and then you come back to the United States and you commit a crime, the punishments for that crime are like 10 times more severe than they would have been.
Yeah. This bill was inspired by a woman named Kate Steinle, who was killed in San Francisco by an illegal alien who was deported multiple times. And actually, yesterday, Saturday, was the second anniversary of her death. Now, the second bill that was passed through the House, the No Sanctuary for Criminals Act, is a bill that will remove federal grants to sanctuary cities that incentivizes sanctuary cities to pretty much go away and start cooperating. Otherwise, you're going to be losing funding. In the same sense of what the federal government did when they were raising the drinking age to 21. The last state to do that was Wisconsin, kind of proudly. We kept it at 18 till the 1980s, but they were moving state funding towards roads from us. So, when you do stuff like this, eventually it makes people go into the fold. Otherwise, you're losing millions of dollars. So, I don't know. I support both these going through.
I do too. I'm skeptical of the No Sanctuary for Criminals Act passing in the Senate.
Probably won't.
I do think that Kate's Law will pass in the Senate. It just for the simple fact that in the House it had a lot more Dem crossover votes voting yes.
Yeah, to give the numbers on how they voted for the No Sanctuary for Criminals Act, it was 228 to 195, where 3 Democrats voted yes and 7 voted no.
Right. So the first bill, Kate's Law, had 24 Democrats voting yes. The second one only had 3. So that tells you, just how much less support it has among Democrats. So
7 Republicans voting no. I didn't say that.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm just going to say again what I said. I do think Kate's Law will pass the Senate. I'm skeptical of the No Sanctuary for Criminals Act. It might still. I'm not saying it's not going to. I just think it's going to face a tougher time getting there.
I definitely want that one more than Kate's Law, though.
I want both.
Yeah.
This is where I'm gonna have to break with the room here. One of the things holding me back from supporting the Sanctuary Criminals Act is the provision that limits government officials on giving statements on immigration if it is the antithesis of what's going on at the federal level. This is a direct violation of First Amendment.
I don't know, because, we have the SB4 here in Texas, which is now a law, and they also have similar provisions to that, where if you make statements as a public official that goes against, current federal immigration, you can go to jail. That's what we currently have here in Texas.
I think the Trump administration also said that they're siding with SB4 in Texas and any future lawsuits that might come out as well.
Yes.
Regarding it.
So, I guess you have dissenting on that. I mean, it's already, like, knowing that someone's an illegal alien and not doing anything about that, that's a crime already. Harboring illegal aliens, these are crimes that already exist. So...
And you know what? That's actually a good segue into our next story, in which the federal government is planning to arrest parents who hire smugglers to bring children across the U.S. border.
Do you get the story on that, Bobby?
I absolutely do. So what they're doing is, if people believe that people are hiring, or parents are hiring people to actually smuggle their children across, they can get arrested for that. Which, like you said, there are already laws in the books that, it's illegal to hire people who are illegals to do work. If you're harboring someone, that's illegal. If you're helping someone across the border, that's illegal. But now it's if you are the one who hires the person to smuggle them across the border, that's illegal as well. And they're going to increase the penalties and arrest those people as well. That's pretty much all that story has to go on. But, it's a very good... It has to do with what we were just talking about.
Yeah. Oh, crap. Just delete an article. Let me try and get up the article I was going to put.
Were you talking about the
DHS wall?
The DHS
yeah, I got that up. So, Homeland Security has just started building their prototypes out in San Diego. These are the prototypes for the wall. Did you have the stuff on this, Bobby?
Yeah. So, what's happening is out in San Diego, the Department of Homeland Security is beginning construction of prototypes for the border wall. And we talked about that on the show in the past, about the fact that they were building the prototypes before they build the actual wall.
Yeah.
But what's new is that the existing border fence that's in California near San Diego, they're actually replacing it with these prototype walls to see just how effective they are actually at working. So it's not only the fact that they are building it, but they're replacing the old section as they're going along.
So essentially we are starting construction of the wall in a very minor way, and these aren't going to be what is uniform to what we will use for the wall. But yeah, we're already starting the process right now to build the wall. That's just a fact. And I mean, they don't talk about that ever on the news, but yeah, we're building a wall. We're doing it right now, and we're going to figure out which wall is the best.
And they also said that once these prototypes are constructed and they're able to see which ones work best, all that sort of stuff, their priority is those 160 miles of U.S. border that they believe the wall is most necessary at. And we've gone into a lot of detail about that on the show as well.
Yeah, I forget who gave the report. It was like a month ago. But they said if you put 100 miles of wall in the right places, that alone could be enough to drastically drop illegal immigration. Now, it's already down 75% with Donald Trump being in office. But, I mean, just 100 miles of wall in the right places will do it. And we already have enough funding to fund that much wall. So, yeah, stuff on the wall front is definitely going good at the moment.
And if you remember, we talked on the show that they also said their priority is to get the actual wall starting construction by March of next year, which was later than what we wanted it to be. But when you consider the fact that, what they're doing right now essentially is starting construction on the wall, that's a good thing.
And we have to figure out which prototype we do want. But I mean, if we can do that, ahead of schedule, I mean, we can start building before that. It's no problem.
I mean, didn't they say that their goal was to start construction of the prototypes by about September or August?
It was August.
Yeah, and now it's July, so we're already about a month or so ahead of schedule.
Yes. So, yeah, really good wall news, which, probably the biggest reason why Donald Trump won to build a wall. So, yeah, we're doing it. We're just gonna do it, okay? So, do you want to talk about the stuff with the Mexican government, Bobby?
I'll go ahead and just kind of go over it really quickly. So, we were talking earlier about SB4, which is the Texas bill that bans sanctuary cities and essentially puts heavy penalties on people who help illegals within the state. But the Mexican government has filed an affidavit of concern over Texas's sanctuary city ban. But as we said before, the U.S. government or the Trump administration has said that they are siding with Texas on it. But a federal judge in San Antonio actually conducted an all-day hearing. They've yet to rule on the plaintiff's request for a preliminary injunction, which pretty much means they haven't made a decision either way yet. But the fact that the Mexican government itself is actually entering this lawsuit against the state of Texas, I'm not quite sure how legal that actually is.
No.
But it's just an affidavit of concern, which pretty much means, yeah, we have concerns about this. It's almost as simple as it sounds.
Which, we have a lot of Mexican consulates in the state, and they're all up in arms about SB4 passing. They've had a lot of Mexican nationals go in there trying to say, oh, can you do anything for us about this stuff going on? And I know the Mexican government has pledged legal aid dollars to give out to these consulates for the illegal aliens that are coming to them. But I don't really like it when foreign governments are intervening in our states like that. It's a little subversive.
What's interesting, though, is they said in the 6 weeks after SB4 was passed and signed into law, there was a 60% increase in Mexican citizens asking the Mexican consulates in Texas for legal advice.
Yeah, just what I was saying.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to, have the statistics.
No, yeah, the numbers. Very important.
To actually go along
statistics with everything. But, that's the battle that's ongoing right now here in Texas where we live. So we're right at the cutting edge of all this immigration stuff.
On the plus side, it's never been more ripe time to marry a dreamer.
Although, I know that there's a lot of people that are pushing back on DACA right now, so that's another thing.
No,
though.
I'm saying once you never mind. Yeah, for sure.
No, even the
if you get married,
Texas is going to sue the United States along with 4 other states, I believe it is.
Threatened to sue
if they don't repeal DACA, which is deferred action for childhood arrivals, which is bigger than DAPA, which we rescinded last week or 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
About 2 weeks ago, which was a big deal. But DACA is the bigger one. DACA is the one where it's all the college age kids which we have already deported people on DACA. That's the thing.
Wasn't there a guy deported at his prom?
He was deported the morning of prom.
I don't know if he was DACA though. But DACA is unconstitutional. That's the thing. Just like DAPA, they're both unconstitutional. They're pseudo amnesties. So I don't know. With the push that we're sending here, just with Governor Greg Abbott, we could get rid of DACA because it is unconstitutional. I mean, there's no way that this could be upheld in a court of law.
Yeah.
But it just means Trump needs to have the balls to do that. That's the only thing.
And the Attorney General of Texas is Ken Paxton. He's the one who threatened to sue the Trump administration. I've met the guy before. I have a picture with him. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, I have a photo with him as well.
I think you took my photo and I took your photo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we met him at the same time.
But let's go into some other immigration stuff.
Can we skip this immigration report numbers?
Okay, yeah, sure.
So the next story that we are going to get to is the city of San Francisco is paying $190,000 to an illegal alien because they tried to deport him. Now, the background of this story was that the guy by the name of Pedro Figueroa Zarceno, his car got stolen in 2015, so he walked into a police station to file the report, and in doing so, the city police figured out that the guy was an illegal immigrant, and while he's filing the report, one of the police officers there secretly called ICE, and so when the guy was leaving the station, ICE showed up and arrested him to try to deport him. Now, the reason that that is such a controversial thing is because San Francisco is a sanctuary city, and they have laws in the books stating, how and when people are allowed to be deported, if at all. And by that police officer calling ICE the way he did, which essentially just, on his phone, kind of walked into the other room, that violated the city's laws. And the guy actually won in court. He was not deported. And that means the taxpayers have to pay $190,000 to this guy. That's what he won.
Because of dramatic pain and suffering. It's a Pedro Figueroa Zarceno.
Yes.
To say it correctly. But, yeah, that's insane how these sanctuary cities laws work to where taxpayer-funded dollars is now going to an illegal alien because we almost sent him home. That's insane. That's really crazy to think about. How is this guy an economic boon to us if we're paying out taxpayer dollars to him because we almost sent him away? Is this guy that valuable? I don't know.
And just of note, he was an illegal immigrant from El Salvador. In case you were wondering.
Can you imagine being able to go to another country?
You could never do that.
You?
There are no other countries that no countries that does this other than the United States.
There's no equivalent, right? There's no equivalent situation.
I can't go to Mexico and say Mexico City has a sanctuary city policy, and then they try to deport me back to America, and I sue them back, and I get to stay and get money. That's insane. No serious country does this, okay? I just want us to be a serious country again. This is insane.
But remember, in the article, it talks the illegal. He talks about, but my daughter was crying. They're like, no, they're taking my dad. Well, they should because he came here illegally.
Yeah, it's his fault for being here. Okay, you want to apologize to anyone? Maybe Pedro, you should apologize to your daughter for coming here illegally. You're the one that put her in this scenario.
Question is the daughter illegal?
Who knows?
She's probably is, but
I don't know.
If she isn't, then just revoke birthright citizenship.
I was going to say we should be revoking birthright citizenship. Either way, we don't speculate on the show, so let's move on.
Well, sometimes we do, but
that's the joke.
So the next story we wanted to get into was Trump approved an oil pipeline to Mexico, which will be going under the wall.
Yeah, he specifically said that. He was talking to a group of people, I believe it was at the White House's Energy Week summit that they were holding. And he said, "Today, I'm proudly announcing 6 brand new initiatives to propel this new era of American energy dominance." He told the employees at the Department of Energy. And he said, in talking about the construction of the new pipeline, he says, "And that'll go right under the wall, right? It's going under, right? Have it go down a little deeper in that one section, a little like this, right under the wall." And the audience started laughing. So,
when I read that, I laughed.
But there's more to that than just the story. About just more about the actual pipeline. The State Department said that the pipeline, which is called the New Burgos Pipeline, it's going to deliver up to 108,000 barrels per day of refined petroleum across the U.S.-Mexico border. And there's also permits that the U.S. has made for 2 new pipelines. One and both of them would be built in Texas. I'm not sure exactly where the pipeline he was talking about would be built. But even so, yeah, that's pretty much it.
So there's going to be pipelines in Texas that go under the wall.
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. So let's go into the last story we have on immigration before we get into the bottom of the stack for national news. The last story we have is A Baltimore restaurant owner says 30 of his employees left due to ICE crackdowns. So, there's this guy who owns this restaurant called the Boathouse in Baltimore, and recently they got served from the Department of Homeland Security a hand-delivered letter that demanded documentation on the immigration status of the people that work there. And he says more than 30 workers at his restaurant left. Now, the owner, Gene Singleton, insists that his business was in compliance with the immigration law. He posted a letter online where he wrote, based on our government's current practices of targeting the Hispanic community, properly documented and potentially less than properly documented are fearful of being separated from their families, many with small children. Many went home to pack up and leave.
Good. I hope they brought the families with them. That way they don't have to be separated.
Yeah, you can all go back together. But it's just like, he says he's in compliance, but the second his business is given a service, 30 people leave. Oh, I wonder if anyone is there that's not supposed to be there.
And he said, we've just got to make sure that everybody's playing by the same rules. And by that, the same rules are no hiring of illegals.
Yeah, this is really absurd. Like, he's pretty much just pulling the race card. Oh, because the government has a policy against Hispanics, that's why people are leaving. Like, no, dude, you have illegal aliens working at your restaurant, okay? That's why they're leaving. But yeah, it's pretty cool that we're doing that. I don't know.
I'm glad that, if they, we talked about on the show about self-deporting. They self-deported. That saved us a lot of money.
Yeah, they just self-deported. Yeah, when people always say, like, oh, you can't deport 11 million illegal aliens. Oh, we definitely don't have to. All you have to do is make it really bad to live here. They'll send themselves back.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to personally deport 11 million. You can easily get most of them out without ever having to arrest them. So 30 just went just here at the threat of an officer coming. So, but let's get into the rest of the news we have in the national front. So the first thing we wanted to talk about, which was super huge, if you don't know about this, you better know about this after this episode. The stuff happening with Project Veritas, them starting the American Pravda, this is James O'Keefe's thing. So they've been releasing a lot of journalistic videos on CNN where they actually admit to, playing up the Russia narrative for ratings. Now, I know I've seen all three videos. I forget who's the guy in the first one, but the second one is Van Jones, which he's a super prominent guy who's on TV all the time. And, when the investigative journalist that is talking to him, because this is all on video, you can go watch the videos and see this, he asked them about the Russia stuff, and he says, yeah, the Russia stuff is a big nothing burger. And, like, he admits that they do this for ratings. It's... Yes.
Well, I think Van Jones kind of gave himself a little bit of plausible deniability on a few reasons. Number one, he didn't know he was being recorded. Obviously, none of them do. But he hasn't really been at the forefront of the Russia hysteria as much as the other co-hosts. That you can actually kind of go back and see, because he's been saying, like, basically being a little bit more real, if you want to say that, in his political stance by saying, Democrats, stop focusing on this. There's other things you can hit Trump on. Stop focusing on Russia. So in that way, and then also he did do a response. It's on CNN.com if you type in response to that video, where Anderson Cooper asked him, what do you mean by nothing burger? And he goes on a little bit of explanation. You could hear it for yourself and say, oh, maybe he's just backpedaling or whatnot. But he said that he does talk to anybody, and so this was just a guy that came up on the street that he had met before, and what he meant was that there are other things that are going on that we can hit Trump on, but not necessarily Russia. And again, I mean, Van's not necessarily a producer, but he's a talking head.
So the guy in the first video, his name is John Bonafield, and he's a CNN supervising producer. And in that video, the first one, he comes out and says the Russia narrative is bullshit, but our numbers are up right now. Our numbers are super high. So it's easy that you can see through why CNN does this stuff. The last one comes from CNN producer. It's an associate producer. Where's his name? I don't know. But it's a CNN associate producer, and in that video, they're at a bar, and you can see in that video he says the American voters are stupid as shit. Referring to Kellyanne Conway, he says that she looks like she got hit with a shovel. And what was the third?
The third
That
thing
to me is the most damning video. That one.
The third thing was when they were asking about, him personally, not liking Trump, but he said, yeah, about 90% of people that I work with,
he says that
believe the same thing.
He's a completely and unqualified clown, and about 90% of the people at CNN think the same way as me.
Sure.
So, there is no objectivity at CNN. Yeah, I believe it was in the Van Jones one, they say, the CEO of CNN is Jeff Zucker. When the Paris Climate Accord thing happened, they reported on that for a day and a half. And then they're told to go immediately back to Russia. This is pure propaganda. There's no objectivity. Everyone in there is in on it. Yeah, CNN is fake news, okay? You're going to get upset and cry about when the president tweets negatively about you. Maybe you shouldn't have stuff like this coming out about you. But the one last thing with the third video, which was very interesting, is it shows a segment where CNN was interviewing some Trump supporters on a panel. And it was getting their opinions on the Trump supporters the first 60 days into the administration. Now, at one point, one of the guys talks about voter fraud. And the woman pushes him on saying, because he said, I've seen this happen in New Hampshire where I live, where they come in busloads. And the lady that's interviewing them all says, so you've seen the 3 to 5 million that Donald Trump is reporting. He says, well, no, but I mean, I'm seeing this happening. They come in busloads. I mean, I guess I can't cite it what I saw. And she says, oh, well, where have you seen this? And he says some stuff. He says, oh, I've seen it on TV, and they cut it right there. So the segment that they played on TV, it looks like he's stupid, like he's a conspiracy theorist. But the thing is, they had the entire 45, 50-minute video or audio clip of that interview sent to them, and they play what this guy said right after that, where he actually defends himself, and he goes on to say, well, have you seen the video of James O'Keefe where he goes to a New Jersey polling place and he's able to get cleared to vote even though he shows no ID? And the woman tries to fight him on that, but they hammer him hammer the lady with the point, BTFOs them right there, but they don't air that. They cut it right there so he looks stupid, never get to the point where he actually made a good point. And that's how they do all this stuff. That's how the fake news works. Okay, it's selective editing. It broke the narrative what he said, so they got rid of it. And yeah, you can see it all now with what's happening with CNN. So do we have some other stuff with CNN we want to go into?
Yeah, there's one more thing I want to mention is that CNN boss Jeff Zucker, he reinsured his viewers in saying that CNN is now more than ever trusted by their viewers, which I think is, a complete total farce since, besides your extremely loyal viewers, how can anyone actually trust anything CNN is saying nowadays? Yeah. But, they've been talking about their ratings and say, oh, this is really good for ratings. Our ratings are really good. CNN released a statement saying something along the lines of that they had one of their best quarters ever for ratings. But what they didn't mention was that every single station did really good that same quarter. CNN's daytime ratings are still not even in the top 10 of all network TV. Even things like, I think it's like HGTV, ranks higher than them for daytime ratings. And even in primetime ratings, they're like 4th or 5th, MSNBC used to be way down there. They've come up.
I don't know. Oh yeah, I was just gonna break in just a little bit because I saw this YouTube video on fake news yesterday, and I don't know how accurate this is, although it kind of seems about right, where they were breaking down, you can complain about Fox and that they skewed positive for Trump or to the right too much, as much as you want. If you add up the viewers for CNN, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, ABC, all on the skewed to the left side, that's about 10 times more eyes than Fox could ever get. So in the grand scheme of things, and CNN is the fakest because they pretend to be down the middle of the road, report just the facts and only the facts and nothing but the facts. That's their persona they put out. Zucker's crazy for saying that because it's at its very lowest of trustworthiness. But that's their persona. We are trusted. We are the news.
Bobby, was there another story about some CNN staffers being fired this week?
Yes, there was. This was a correction of an earlier story, which said that they resigned. But the reason for it was because there was a story that was put out saying...
By CNN.
Yeah, by CNN, which was kind of talking about... It supposedly linked Trump to Russia. But the story was recently retracted because of the fact that it, quote-unquote, didn't meet their journalistic standards. And the reason for that is because of the fact that...
It's fake news.
It was fake news, It was another one of those stories that had an anonymous source that was proven wrong, that had no actual basis in the story itself. But now one of the people that was talked about in that story has threatened to sue CNN for $100 million.
So they fired the journalist that did the article. Well, it was like 3 of them?
It was 3 of them.
One of them was a Pulitzer Prize winner, and the other was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah, the 3 reporters that were fired were Tom Frank, editor Eric Lichtblau, and Lex Harris, who is the head of CNN's investigative unit.
This is really a crazy time to be alive now that we're watching the death of CNN before our eyes in such like transparent ways. But the thing is, like, there's just a lot of people that will never know this stuff. There's a lot of people that will never see these Project Veritas videos that will just say us calling them fake news, we're only doing that because Donald Trump hates CNN, so you just call everything fake news. No, they're fake news. We have a lot of stuff we can point to.
It was #1 on trending on YouTube, though, so give props to James O'Keefe for that. He's gonna be like a big time trailblazer for our generation with this
Donald Trump should give James O'Keefe the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
That's a medal?
Which is like the highest civilian award that can be given out by the president.
The way he's taking on CNN and the kind of warfare Donald Trump wishes he could take out, maybe he should get a medal. I don't know.
Well, Sarah Huckabee Sanders did tell, in no uncertain terms, she put out basically word. She's like, all Americans should check out these videos, look at them, look at the evidence for yourself. And people were getting upset about that, but it's right there in front of your face.
Yeah, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is deputy press secretary, but lately she's been doing a lot more of the press room interviews, which Sean Spicer was doing. I like her like about 100 times more than I like Sean Spicer. She doesn't hold back her punches, and she's really good. And I actually hope she takes this job.
There's been a lot of talk about replacing Sean Spicer. I mean, he definitely could do a better job. I mean, I've seen a little bit of Huckabee, but I don't know. Yeah, better than Sean Spicer. So
she honestly seems tougher than him.
Oh, she is by far. She is. She's way tougher than he is.
Yeah, but let's get into some other stuff that we have here. So it was last week, I believe, when the California legislature didn't. They stopped their effort to have universal health care. They nixed that bill. Which, if you think about California, their entire legislature, their governor house, everything is controlled by Democrats, and they can't pass a universal, not basic income, universal health care. So in the following up that, there has been a lot of threats sent to officials in California for not being able to pass that law from leftists. One such guy was Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon, who seems to be receiving the most of the backlash from this. He said, quote, "The threats that I've received are threats that unfortunately seem to be sort of a standard part of American politics these days." One interesting one was a tweet that said that they pray that someone, or one tweet that he received said someone check his schedule for baseball practice, which is an obvious reference to Scalise. So a lot of the backlash that he's getting, people just want him to be killed for not passing universal health care. It's insane.
It wasn't just him. They were sending death threats to his family as well.
His entire family. And, you know, this is all because they weren't able to pass a health care bill, which was insane. I mean, the estimates that they were pushing towards it were it would cost at least $400 billion. That's more than the entire California budget, several times over. But there's no reason applied to these people's minds. Okay, them not passing that bill means that they're going to kill people in their mind. Not even to take into account that maybe this bill passes, you can't fund it, but that's not even taking into account what the service would actually be. Would this actually be good healthcare? Who knows? But there's no rationality to the leftists at this point. Okay, they just want to kill people now that are Democrats for not passing this bill just blindly, because they had no... The thing about the bill was they had no means to fund it. It wasn't even said in the bill how they fund it. But, yeah, it's just insane.
Yeah. But we have another story that I wanted to just quickly talk about, not go into too much detail. But California used to have a ban on high-capacity magazines, and by that definition, it was any magazines containing more than 10 bullets. A U.S. district judge, based out of San Diego even, named Roger Benitez, he ruled that ban unconstitutional. So that's a win for people that are on the right who support the Second Amendment. And yeah, that's really all I wanted to say before we move on to the next thing.
Some good news for you California listeners, because I know we have quite a few, I guess. But yeah, let's go into some other California news, actually. This coming from a very dumb woman named Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters was on TV this week, and she... MSNBC, and she uttered a quite insane statement. Do you wanna say the quote for us, Bobby?
Yeah. So on MSNBC, she said, "Take for example the state of Kentucky. Almost 1/3 of those people in the state are covered by Medicaid, and so they're talking about eliminating $700 billion in Trump care bill." So she said that 700 billion people are going to lose health care coverage if Obamacare is repealed.
700 billion.
700 billion people.
Now, after she made this statement, she didn't even realize that she said 700 billion. She kind of stood there with, like, waiting for confirmation, like, yep, I said my thing. Like this woman doesn't even know what comes out of her mouth.
Now, I have a lot of qualms with the Congressional Budget Office and how they released their statements, but their statement said that 22 million people would lose health care coverage if Obamacare was repealed. Now, I don't know how you could go from 22 million to 700 billion. Like, I can understand if she said 22 billion. You know, okay, you mixed up a couple words. But from 22 million to 700 billion, that's not even close. So, yeah, I have no idea what she was talking about with that. But the next thing we wanted to talk about also was with Maxine Waters.
Just another weird thing that she has to say.
And this was something she put out on Twitter. She said, "Women are outraged and fed up with this president. Impeachment isn't enough. Should we explore exile?" So she says she wants Trump to be both impeached and then exiled from the United States.
Like, how about she just gets out of public office?
I
think that would be a good compromise.
I wouldn't mind exiling her from the United States. I think it would raise the national IQ up a little bit.
Oh, God. She's facing off against Omar Navarro, I believe it is. They've had so many things with the Navarro supporters going to events where they yell at Maxine Waters, and she always loses it. I mean, she kicked out people at a...
She kicked out Trump supporters from a town hall.
Yeah.
You know, just a little side tangent about that. When Navarro announced his campaign, he did it in front of her house on the street.
That's a pretty good troll.
Yeah.
Let's get into the next thing we have here, though, with the FBI investigating 1,000 possible ISIS fighters in the United States. You had the stuff on this, Bobby, right?
Yeah, this is an article that's come out of the Charlotte Observer. It was specifically talking about federal investigations of ISIS in North Carolina, but it brings up the good point that North Carolina, as well as in all 50 states, the FBI is investigating 1,000 active possible ISIS-related threats. And specifically, it was talking about the story of a man in North Carolina who flew to Syria to fight for ISIS and then lied to the FBI about it when he came home. He was a 29-year-old man, and this was back in, I believe, 2014 was when this happened. Or, I'm sorry, no, in 2014, there was another person who fought for ISIS and then came back and I believe then killed his girlfriend. I'm sorry, scratch everything I just said. It wasn't killing his girlfriend, it was killing an elderly man who lived with him. But both of those people were people who had fought for ISIS in Syria and then came back. One killing a person, the other one lying to the FBI. And that's just two of over 1,000 current ongoing investigations.
Now, with the trial ban that we have now, these guys wouldn't be able to come back.
They would not have been able to come back and not do what they did.
But we still, as you said, have around 1,000 that we're looking into, which at least we're not like the United Kingdom where they have something like 28,000 that they said.
They got 20, I think it was 20,000 investigations, but about 5,000 estimated ISIS fighters, I believe is how that
Okay,
went.
yeah. At least we don't have that, but 1,000 in the country is still not good at all.
Now, it doesn't mean that they're all, potential... I mean, it does kind of mean they're all potential terrorists, but 1,000 investigations doesn't necessarily mean 1,000 people, because each investigation could have more than one person involved.
Yes.
So that's potentially, more than 1,000 people.
So, yeah, this isn't really a joke. This is something that we need to take serious. I mean, there are, people in the country that support ISIS that we need to watch out for. I mean, San Bernardino, the Orlando guy, these are ISIS, okay? But, do you want to go into the Jane Sanders stuff now? I can talk about it.
Yeah, go ahead and talk about it.
So, Jane Sanders, the wife of Bernie Sanders, has been under investigation by the FBI. As well, Bernie Sanders, all connected to a scandal revolving around this loan that Jane Sanders was able to get when she was the president of Burlington College, which is a small college in Burlington where they're from, which Bernie Sanders has been the mayor of. Now, the big controversy around this is she wanted to get a loan of $10 million so she could buy some more property for the college, 33 acres and a facility. Now, the big controversy comes is she indicated that there was about $2.6 billion in pledged donations, but the school had only received $676,000 in donations in a 4-year period. So this is like very fraudulent to get this loan. Now, the reason why Bernie Sanders is under investigation is that it's believed that he used his office as senator to get this loan passed, to encourage the bank to do this loan. So this is why they're both under investigation. Now, the big thing that we've recently been able to learn, though, from all this going on, you can read this off of Judicial Watch. This is where they have it. So there was a disabled group that was housed in a facility, part of the facility that they're able to buy. Now, Jane Sanders was responsible for relocating these people, but it turned out she just evicted them. So she foregoed all of her responsibility and just evicted these people out of the facility. Disabled people. I'm supposed to believe that, they played Jane Sanders up as this great, honest person. Great, honest people don't do stuff like this. It's something else. The image that the Bernie Sanders people believe of Bernie Sanders is not who he is, which we did this show last week about Bernie Sanders' platform and why it's all stupid and insane.
Yeah, if you want to know pretty much everything you need to know about Bernie Sanders and his platform, go and watch our midweek episode. We have a refutation of his policies.
Listen to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. These people aren't who you believe they are. Everything that was told to you by Bernie Sanders is an inconceivable lie. And now these people are under investigation because they lied to a bank. So we'll see where the FBI goes with that. But let's get into the last thing we want to talk about, national news, before we get into current year college craziness, which is Illinois. Yeah,
so the last couple weeks we've been talking about Illinois' budget crisis and how it's going, and we promised to keep you up to date. Well, their fiscal year ended June 30th, and they were unable to pass a new state budget, pushing themselves into the third straight fiscal year that they haven't published a budget yet. And if you remember, their credit rating was downgraded to one step above junk status. But by not being able to pass this budget, the possibility of it actually becoming junk status has significantly skyrocketed. It also means that the state has a possibility of actually declaring bankruptcy, which has never happened for any state. But their Speaker of their House was even talked down by some of the people that are also in their state legislature because they didn't like what he was doing. Now, their legislature is Democratic, even though their governor is Republican, which is kind of an interesting thing to happen, but it's still up to their state legislature in order to actually pass that stuff done. Their Speaker of the House is a guy by the name of Michael Madigan, and he says that much work remains to be done, but we'll get the job done. And the problem also is the fact that without their budget, they have to pretty much borrow all the money they have to spend, which increases their state debt. They said that by August, the state will completely run out of money for key expenses for the first time since this began. That includes school funding, state payroll, and pension payments that could be affected. They said there won't be enough money for these mandated court-ordered payments. And if that happens, the state risks default. Obviously, I don't want that to happen.
Because it means we're bailing them out.
Yeah, because we would have to bail them out. And last week we talked about this one guy who joked about, breaking the state up completely. Obviously, that was a joke, but,
Could also do that.
Mm-hmm. But, there was one more thing that kind of has to go along with that. Illinois is not the only state that's facing those problems. New Jersey and Maine are both experiencing government shutdowns as we speak because their states weren't able to pass budgets either. Now, that's similar to the federal government shutdown back in 2013. We all remember that. Yeah. But that is now on state level for New Jersey and Maine. And New Jersey actually had to shut down some beaches. These are public beaches in the beginning of July that people aren't allowed to go on because of the fact that the state has having a government shutdown. Like, that's a huge problem.
That's really crazy.
That should be public stuff. You should be able to go to the beach whether or not the state government is shut down or not. And the reason I bring up that is because there's a picture that was taken of New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and his family were pictured laying on the beach that was being shut down. So it's almost like, you peasants, this affects you. It doesn't affect us elite people in government. But I just wanted to bring that up as well.
Yeah, not really a fan of Chris Christie so much, so it'd be cool if he was not the governor of New Jersey anymore. But some really bad stuff happening in Illinois and happening in other states. People aren't very fiscally responsible. But let's go into current year college craziness now.
The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic. You're fucking a white male!
The assumption that women are naturally better caregivers is part of patriarchy.
Racists, stop.
You will not divide us. You will not divide us. You will not divide us. You will not divide us.
It's time for some current year college craziness.
Current year college craziness, the segment that keeps on giving, where we talk about the craziness that goes in college campuses all across the world, mainly United States, United Kingdom, but I think we've had somewhere else. I don't know. But the first story we want to get into this week is a lawyer has called due process for male students rape. Let me start it over. A lawyer has called due process for male students accused of rape propaganda. Now, I'm the person that read up on this, so let me pull it up for a second. Bobby, have you read at all about this?
I have not on this one.
Okay. Well, there's this lady who has recently written this article about, her name is Annalee E. Curtis, and she is a lawyer, and she wrote an article called, it just got away from me, Due Process Demands as Propaganda, the Rhetoric of Title IX Opposition. This was in the Yale Journal of Law and Humanities, mind you. So this is some prestigious stuff. I don't know. This article should be taken seriously. Where she argues that due process demands functions as propaganda under the regime of rape culture on campuses. Rape culture, you know. Rape culture, if you don't know, it's the belief that, 1 in 5 women are... 1 in 4, 1 in 5. I've heard both numbers.
I've heard as low as 1 in 3, but I think it's 1 in 4 is what they're currently going with.
Yeah, women will be sexually assaulted while they're in college. Now, I don't really want to go into the numbers on that so much. I mean, you can look into yourself. The numbers, if you look into it, it's safer to be on a college campus than in the general public.
I mean, not only that, the way that they have definitions for that is, if you have sex with someone and then you regret it, even if it was completely consensual, that counts.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of stuff like that's factoring in. Or if they say, were you drinking at all? Even if it was consensual and you weren't drunk.
So the big thing about this stuff is when you are accused of raping someone in college, this usually doesn't go to an actual court. This goes to a college court where they have hearings with you. And often there's no due process. You don't get to have cross-examination with the accuser. You don't have a trial among your peers. These are kangaroo courts. And there's been many, 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 in the hundreds, of men that have been expelled without any sort of due process. And this woman supports doing this. She says that by allowing for due process, it means that you are giving power that, here, let me say it in a different way. By having due process, it functions as propaganda that effectively reduces the empathy for victims of assault by making them seem both powerful and suspicious, while also activating the fears of false accusations. What kind of statement is that? I don't know.
I don't know. Can we move on to the next one then?
Yeah.
Okay, so
let me try to close this out a bit. In her entire essay, she never states that false accusations even happen. She says propaganda does not only come in the variants of what happens in Nazi Germany, but also it happens on an everyday level. And advocacy for due process is also a form of propaganda. In so many different words. I mean, I didn't say quote-unquote verbatim for what she says, but I mean, you can read her crazy, stupid article. But in general, it's just crazy, stupid stuff, and that's just the hysteria of rape culture on campuses. You have people advocating in prestigious Yale journals for no due process for men. But yeah, let's get into the next one. I know you have the next one, Bobby.
Yeah. So the next one that I wanted to talk about was Lewis University which is a college in, I don't even know, it doesn't even say where it's at. Anyways.
I'll look it up.
But Lewis University is now seeking a new coordinator to, quote, encourage students to live and understand social justice from a Catholic perspective by creating a social justice education plan. But what the point that really brings up from this article is that coordinator is going to take people on social justice pilgrimages. And those social justice pilgrimages that they want to bring up people on would bring people to the U.S.-Mexico border and also to Selma, Alabama, to learn about the history that happened in Selma with the civil rights movement back in the 60s. And also, you know, for the U.S.-Mexico border, what's currently going on there right now. They said that social and the university ministry lists social justice as one of the focuses on their website. And it also is a type of school that actually hosts several social justice themed opportunities, including a leadership program and an ambassador program. So I guess you can be a social justice ambassador as well.
Yeah, Lewis University is in Romeoville, Illinois.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's how far the orthodoxy of this social justice stuff goes now. Now they're having pilgrimages to indulge in their social justiceness. Because the thing is, it just makes them feel so good. It makes them feel so good that they're doing something. So good.
Yeah.
Isn't Illinois going bankrupt?
Yeah, we just talked about that.
This is a private university,
it's a private
though.
university.
But the job posting further declared that Lewis University is a safe space for students and is institutionally committed to diversity, which is our strength.
Most definitely.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the Vatican child sex abuse scandal earlier this week, this would be the worst news in the Catholic week so far.
Oh, God. That is a good little quip, though.
And the last thing I wanted to mention before we go on to the next thing is that Campus Reform has made multiple inquiries to Lewis University talking about that job posting. Since then, the job posting is technically still up, but there's a note under it saying this job is no longer available. But they haven't said whether it's been filled or whether they're just not offering it anymore. Yeah.
Maybe we should apply. I don't know.
Oh, we should apply.
I don't want to live in Illinois, though. That's a terrible place. But let's get into the next story. So, a student has been caught registering some people. Is that right, Bobby?
Yes. At James Madison University, which is in Virginia, Harrisonburg, Virginia, to be specific, a student by the name of Andrew J. Spiels has pled guilty in the United States District Court after registering or illegally registering people to vote in the 2016 presidential election. Now, this includes people that were dead people that they registered to vote, as well as he faked social security numbers and fake names just in order to get people to vote. Because what they were doing was every single week, his job was to collect people on campus to get them to vote. And the physical forms that they would get, every Thursday he would have to physically go down there and turn those in which case they would then be entered into the computer system. But he wasn't the only person in that district that was getting people's names. So once they started getting both the names, they realized that all the names the other guy was getting was legit, but all the names he was giving, a large portion of them were either incorrect names or fake social security numbers or people that were already dead. And so once they looked into it, they realized that he was committing voter fraud by illegally registering people to vote. And keep in mind, this was all for the Democratic Party. This was not for just, bipartisan registering people to vote. He worked for the Democrat Party. He worked for a company, I believe it was, if I can find the name here, it was a company called Harrisonburg Votes, which was funded by the Democratic Party. So once they realized that the names he was giving were incorrect, he's since been arrested and has pled guilty.
But voter fraud doesn't happen, Bobby. How is this possible?
Well, he actually admitted that he created all 18 fraudulent forms himself and that no one else participated in the crime. So he's openly admitted, yeah, I fraudulently registered 18 fake votes there. So,
but this stuff doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen anywhere.
How can you plead guilty to something that doesn't happen?
There's no evidence that happens anywhere, so we shouldn't tell the federal government any of this information.
The Democrats registering people to vote, that's just a myth, even when the people they plead up to that myth. So stupid. Let's do you want to go into mine now?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rolling Stone, which if you don't know about the UV rape hoax case, I guess I'll go into that now. In 2004, or in November of 2014, the Rolling Stone published an article called "A Rape on Campus." Now, when this article was released, this is probably the peak of rape culture hysteria. I remember hearing about this stuff a lot back then, and this was one of the stories that was pointed to the most. Now, the story "A Rape on Campus" was a 9,000-word account on some allegations of sexual assault at University of Virginia in Charlottesville, which included a brutal gang rape as a hazing ritual. They described the experience of a student named Jackie, who talks about a fraternity called Phi Kappa Psi, which said that they engaged into a gang rape of her. And this whole thing was pushed as, this is rape culture on campus. This is an experience of it happening and such. But the only problem is this all came out as false. Both the Charlottesville Police Department and Columbia University Journalism School were able to release reports almost immediately after that the stuff that they're talking about never occurred. Now, the University of Virginia but keep in mind, though, all the people in that fraternity were condemned immediately after, because, a lot of people are going to believe this stuff anyways, because it's rape culture. You're not allowed to have any doubt, as the lady said, in the first story that we went over for this segment. But the administrator for University of Virginia was actually able to sue Rolling Stone for defamation of his character, since they said he was doing nothing about this, and he was able to get $7.5 million. Now, that fraternity that was accused of doing the gang raping, they just were able to settle for $1.65 million. They dropped their case, which they're aiming for $25 million. But, yeah, this is the most historic case of rape culture hoax, and now they just settled with the fraternity, which they defamed. But, yeah, do you have any other thoughts on that? Or?
Yeah, Rolling Stone, in my opinion, they got really cheap in this case. This story wasn't retracted until 5 months after the facts. This caused irreparable damage, not to mention the immediate condemnation, as you said, the witch hunts, and the suspension of fraternities on several campuses, not just on the University of Virginia, it's also across the nation, to where it was this SJW, they wanted a crusade against fat culture, against Greek life. But at least with a 1.65 million, I hope that Phi Kappa Psi, they take that money, they build a monument that says, here on September 28th, 2012, nothing happens.
I hope they just enjoy every single dollar that was given to them.
Rolling Stone is fake news.
Yeah, but, this is another thing I guess we could say. Like, fake news hurts people's lives. Like, this article hurt the lives of every single person that was accused. And that's why they're getting millions of dollars back. But these allegations are things that really affects people, There's no doubt these guys lost friends when they were accused. There's no doubt a lot of close people in their life disavowed them because of this allegation from the Rolling Stone.
And not to mention the damage this does to real rape victims out there who have their credibility questioned because of people who make up crimes.
Or make fake news. But, let's go into the next story we have out of the UW-Madison.
Yeah, I know you're from Wisconsin, Enzo, but I decided to read this story.
It's all good.
Huh?
It's all good.
Yeah. So the University of Wisconsin-Madison is hiring a specialist to plan social justice leadership retreats, host discussion groups for marginalized populations, and, quote, generally advance social justice on campus. Now, what they're specifically doing is they're hiring a specialist in order to do that. And they said their specialist will be responsible for working directly with students and, quote, must host regular support and discussion meetings for marginalized populations and meet with students to discuss issues of injustice. And, yeah, they said the specialists will also help promote a safe campus climate for minority students, including students of color, LGBTQ students, women, and other historically marginalized groups, according to the job listing.
Now, Bobby, do you remember, I believe it was 1 or 2 months ago on Current Year College Craziness, we reported another story from UW-Madison.
I remember.
About a guy who was doing graffiti that was black. And the entire campus, is up in arms because the police arrested this guy after he, threatened to kill someone that saw him graffiti, and he did $1,000 of damage. Do you think this guy's going to get to go to one of those meetings for being marginalized?
I mean, he is a...
Probably. He's a student
of color.
He's a student. He qualifies.
Yeah. He's part of a historically marginalized group, so...
This program was all for him. And people like him.
Yeah. They said the minimum salary for the specialist will start at $46,000, but it could go higher, depending on the applicant's qualifications.
This is so useless.
You know what's even worse, though? Is Campus Reform looked into it, and they were asking them questions, and UW-Madison actually told them that the specialist position for this has actually existed since 2007. And the only reason why it's being brought up now is because the old person's moving on to something else, they need a new one.
At UW-Madison, because, I'm from Wisconsin, I have a lot of friends that graduated from UW-Madison. Madison's a very, very, very liberal place. It's very bad. And you can actually get a degree at UW-Madison in feminist biology. I don't... Why is feminist biology a degree? I don't know. But...
Well, one more thing I was going to say was it's not just the people of Wisconsin paying for this. This position is paid for by receiving funding from both the state and federal governments through a fund that is earmarked for assisting, quote, multicultural and economically disadvantaged students.
Well, I'm glad that we're paying for the counseling, that guy that we've, yelled at for almost killing someone.
Yeah, I'm glad we're subsidizing cancer.
This mentality is so stupid. Just deal with college yourself.
But Enzo, you see, all they're trying to do is they're trying to, quote, bring about meaningful change to promote social justice and equity across the campus.
Why is equity an aim of college?
It doesn't say equality, it says equity.
No, yeah, equity.
Yeah.
That's even worse than equality.
Yeah, they said that they just want to challenge the structures, processes, policies, and culture of UW-Madison.
I hate it when leftists use the word equity. It is the most assaulting. It's the opposite of meritocracy. Equity means you want exactly the same for every single person, which means you want to take away from people to give to others.
It's stupid.
It's communist.
It's gay.
Yeah, coming from the gay person.
But,
I wouldn't call myself a person.
Yeah, that's fine.
You still nailed it.
But you know what? There's another story from another campus that we're going to talk about, and that is at the University of Maryland, the campus police have launched an investigation into a discarded piece of plastic wrap that they said was a, quote, possible hate bias incident. Now,
wow.
A student by the name of Jamie Hurtado took a picture of this piece of plastic on the ground and tagged the University of Maryland Police Department in it. Now, the piece of plastic is just like a string of plastic that's kind of tied together at one end, so it looks like it's a miniature noose. Now, judging by the fact that this picture that they posted on Twitter, you can see a sidewalk and grass next to it. I bet you it's no longer than about 6 inches at max. It's not like it's really, really long. It's a teeny tiny little piece of plastic. But the University of Maryland campus police is launching an official investigation into it because it's a possible hate bias incident. Now, Enzo, do you think that this means that plastic is going to be called racist?
If it looks like a noose, yeah. I mean, who knows why that plastic could be there? Maybe the wind blew. Maybe a Klans member put it there. We don't know, okay? We gotta investigate on this stuff, Bobby. We gotta take this stuff seriously. Gotta find the hard facts.
Gotta blame Trump. Somehow.
Yeah, this is because of Donald Trump. They're feeling afraid. This is one of the funniest things, though. These people are so in their heads about finding hate crimes that they see plastic on the ground and think it's a hate crime. When you're looking for hate crimes, you're going to find them everywhere.
Because the little piece of plastic was in the shape of a noose.
Yeah. Not besides the fact that it's still just plastic on the ground.
if you take your hand and you hold it out and you stretch out your fingers from the tip of your thumb to the tip of your pinky finger, that's about how long that piece of plastic was.
Yeah.
That's a hate crime.
That we need to investigate on. Or an incident of bias, we don't know.
Hate bias.
Hate bias. What is this garbage? It's so stupid.
I feel like it's some kind
It's
of...
literally garbage.
Yeah, it's literally garbage.
I feel like it's... But it's an attitude. It's like you said, if you look for a hate crime everywhere, and it's actually causing, Rolling Stone to do shitty journalism and have to pay for it. CNN to have to doing shitty journalism. It's actually causing problems, even internationally. Russia could be an ally or at least talking with us, and now we're on super thin ice with them because of the media has been pushing a narrative. I'm just saying, this fake news issue, this issue of always looking for some kind of conspiracy or some kind of hate crime to happen to you, it's a disorder that I don't know if psychologists will even diagnose, because I feel like most of the psychologists in America today are suffering from Trump derangement syndrome in some way or another, or like social justice, advocacy.
Caught up in their postmodernist cultural Marxism, which I've always actually wanted to do a podcast on cultural Marxism. Maybe we'll do it at some point. Maybe I'll just do it by myself. I don't know.
Idea.
But yeah, it's very important stuff. Because that's the doctrine that preaches all this social justice stuff. But, do we have any other stuff on this? Did they tell us who was behind the plastic yet?
Not yet. But it could be anyone.
Keep us posted.
Stay listening to Trump Republic Radio. We'll get to the bottom of this.
We'll figure out where that piece of plastic came from that was sitting on the side of that sidewalk.
I doubt it, but if we do find out, we'll tell you. Let's go on the last story we have for Current Year College Craziness before we get into the break.
Just one other thing. Do people need to call 911 if they see trash? Like, what should we tell the listeners?
Well, if it's in the sort of kind of shape
don't
of
approach it.
Noose.
Don't approach it. It might be dangerous.
Okay.
Okay, so this last story comes out of the United Kingdom from Salford University. There's an individual named Zamzam Ibrahim. She's a woman, actually. I thought Zamzam sounds more like a dude's name. But she's the boss of the National Union of Students there, and she's recently received a lot of controversy. Now, Zamzam is Swedish Somali. She was elected head of her Northern England Student Union, and she's a devout Muslim. And now she's recently been kind of the head of a lot of controversy because of a report from Britain's Daily Mail, which exposed some things about her opinions. Now, all these things come from her social media and different online quizzes and stuff. And one thing that she believes is the de-radicalization programs in the United Kingdom are racist. The de-radicalization of, like, Islam. So, like, that's how strong she believes in Islam. She thinks it's racist if you want these programs.
She also thinks it's sexist if you continue to read it, too.
Yeah.
She says, but Islamically, it's incorrect for girls to be friends with a guy anyway, when she was talking about whether people can be friends without actually being married.
Yeah, these are some of the less extreme viewpoints she has. But, she was asked, and no, one of her things where she said was, if everyone should read one book, she said, the Quran, she says we would have an Islamic takeover. But probably the craziest one that she said was from a tweet, which was in response to what she would do if she was president for a day. So to change politics, she would oppress white people just to give them a taste of what they put us through. Yeah, but this is someone that should be the head of like a student union. This is someone that should represent students. Someone that if given the power, would oppress white people in revenge. Also, they think de-radicalization of Islam in the nation is racist. So, let's put people that want to oppress white people and have Islamic takeovers in positions of power. That makes sense.
I feel like this university is teaching racism.
No, racism against whites, that's impossible. It's only systemic racism.
Yeah, what the hell is this, broad? The Nassar around too.
Pretty much.
My question is, how did a Swedish Somali go to college in northern England and then get elected to the student union?
She's probably like a refugee, maybe. But here's the thing. She wants to oppress white people. Everything she benefits from in her existence is created by white people. If she lived back in Somalia, she would have more things to complain about than what she's complaining about. She's very fortunate for living in the United Kingdom, as opposed to Somalia, but she's not grateful about it. She wants, Islamic takeover, so. But the University of Salford this is not the only radical Islamic controversy which they have actually received. If you go back to the Manchester Arena bombing, Salman Abadibi was actually registered as a student to Salford University, where he was receiving student loans despite never actually going to a class. just to remind you what happened at the Manchester bombing, 22 people were killed. So University of Salford, I think they have a radical Islam problem there. I don't know.
I think so.
Maybe. But that's it for current year college craziness. Let's get into that break. I recently made a new segment player for the break, so enjoy that.
Hey, Patriots and Warriors, this is Bass Stickman, and you are listening to Trump Republic Radio.
We were minding our own business, trying to celebrate the free speech that you think is so important, and you came to our rally and you chanted, "You're fags. Go home. You have low testosterone."
And he's been on many very prominent right-wing shows talking about his cause, and that would be Simon Roach of the Sadelanders.
Hello Enzo, hello Robert, thank you very much for having me. Let me say this, it has been my privilege. You won't see it from my perspective, so I'm not going to, it's pointless me trying to persuade you, but you will, let me just tell you I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I appreciate it very much. And if you'd like me to come on again at any time, hopefully there will be fewer difficulties and challenges, and I won't mess you around as I have done this time, for which I'm very sorry. But I would love to come on again. Anytime you ask, I'll be there.
Please call China and tell them we are all counting on China. Tell the president we became friends for 2 days. That he was great.
You really have to walk me through this here, because I am not familiar with so much of the terminology. Like, for instance, can you shed some light on what is a cuck?
A cuck.
How much money will you make today banging that drum for Soros? Soros must pay you good money to bang that drum. Whoa. Hey, do you play ping pong?
Hey, welcome back to the break. We're just going to go into international news, then we're going to be out of here. We got some good stories up, and Bobby's got the first one.
Yes, sir. So, the European Union has has slapped Google with a record $2.7 billion fine because the tech giant has violated some EU antitrust rules. Specifically, because when people go to search something on Google and they want to buy it, normally what it does is it shows the most relevant search result, right? Well, what they found out was that Google was actually promoting their own things that they were physically selling themselves before listing everything else. Or if they had vendors that they approved of, they put those before everything else, even though they might not be as relevant as other things. So because of that antitrust violation, which is, I guess, somehow they violated European Union laws, $2.7 billion fine, which is 2.5% of Google's revenue from last year. When that claim came out, or when they announced that information, shares in Alphabet, which is the company that owns Google, dropped by 1.2% in pre-market trading.
So they were having like kind of like unfavorable.
They were favoring people unfavorably,
like unethical business practices.
Yeah, they were pretty much, they made it so that when you write the search result, or when you look at the search results, they're showing what they want you to see rather than what you want you to see.
Don't they do that already, though? I mean,
personally, if Google wants to have promoted sellers, I guess would be a right to put it, I'm okay with that being first, because I'm probably going to buy from whatever is the best seller out there. And Google wouldn't be promoting them if they weren't a good seller, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but I guess that violates the European Union somehow, so that's why they got that fine.
Yeah.
Let's go into the next thing I have. So it looks like NATO allies in Europe and in Canada are looking to have an increase in defense spending by $12 billion following the pressure that Donald Trump has been putting. So, yeah, here's the statement from NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. In 2017, we foresee an even greater annual real increase of 4.3%. He said this on Wednesday during a news press conference. Quote again, "We are really shifting gears. The trend is up and we intend to keep it up." This increase is he added, stating that the 3 years of consecutive increases represents an overall amount of $46 billion. He also needs to say that we needed to increase our nation's safety, noting that we need to work together to increase defense spending and fair burden sharing across our alliance. Now, if you know how this stuff has been going, because this is a big thing Donald Trump actually ran on, making our allies pay their fair share. At the time of the last NATO summit, which was when Trump lambasted them, we only had 5 members of the 28 member alliance, which makes up NATO, that were actually meeting the spending requirements. In NATO, you're required to spend at least 2% of GDP. The only countries that were doing so was the United States, Britain, Greece, Poland, and Estonia. Stoltenberg also said that Romania was set to join that list this year, and Latvia and Lithuania by 2018. But that leaves out a lot of different nations that weren't up to par. That includes Spain, which is only spending 0.91% of GDP, Italy spending 1.11% of GDP, Germany spending 1.19% of GDP, and France only spending 1.78% of GDP. Now, Stoltenberg also says that we're not only doing this because of Donald Trump, this is something that we need to do, but yeah, ever since Trump has come out and said it's time for y'all to pay up, they're going to do that now. So
you can so pretty much you can absolutely attribute it to Donald Trump.
Most definitely. So yeah, just some good numbers coming out there. We're strengthening NATO. No matter what you believe the use or irrelevance of NATO may be, but yeah, they're doing that. Do you want to go into some Sweden stuff, Bobby?
Yes, I do, unfortunately. So,
always sad news.
Yeah, and this is actually really, really sad. So, people that have gone to fight alongside the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq have returned home to their lives in Europe. Now, specifically, we're going to be talking about Sweden here. And they said that there's hundreds of Swedish residents who have fought for ISIS, have now returned home, and the Swedish government, because of fear of backlash from the public, is now protecting their identities in order to keep locals from finding out who they are. That includes giving them name changes and helping to house them in new areas.
Why aren't they just killing them?
That's what they should be doing.
That's what they should be doing. That's what a serious country would be doing, instead of giving them new identities and housing.
And they help them find new jobs.
Yeah. Swedish Minister for Culture and Democracy, Alice Kunk, she has advocated that Swedish society should prioritize reintegrating these jihadists, these Islamists, into a democratic society. She believes it's important to de-radicalization. But they already crossed the line. They actually have fought against Swedish force in Syria, and there is a considerable controversy that there are militants who left Sweden and are fighting Syria right now who still collects welfare from Sweden.
When Sweden has a very robust welfare state. I think I've talked about what it's like several times. But, yeah, it's the most feminized nation in the world. It's the most feminist nation in the world. Instead of actually seeing the threats that are in front of them, they feel that they need to reintroduce these people into a democratic society because, oh, it'd be mean to exclude people. You're not even willing to exclude people that fight for ISIS at this point. What? You have no future. It's insane.
And they said that there's an estimated 100 or so Swedes who are still in the Middle East fighting for ISIS. But they believe that as troops on both the Kurdish forces and Iraqi forces, and I guess that would include Russian forces too, as they keep sweeping across the country and driving ISIS out, the fears are that those people then might return to Sweden, and they're viewed as the most radical of the group because they're still there fighting right now.
And they're just going to be welcomed in. They're going to be given protected identities and houses and jobs.
Refugees are welcome here.
Like, they say they're doing this because they don't want backlash, but, like, you deserve backlash for doing this.
Yeah.
Like, think about the 13 colonies. We revolted because of high taxes. Not even high taxes, just taxation without representation. You think the Swedish people would, like, revolt when your taxation is being given to ISIS fighters? That's... It's insane. But a lot of people in Sweden can't even wake up to this. It's a strange mindset, the Nordic mindset.
But
go into the next Swedish story.
We have another Swedish story here, and this one's equally, if not worse, and more as sad. But there were several rapes at Swedish festivals last night. They said that after these music festivals that happened, actually this story is from Friday evening, a 15-year-old girl was raped during a concert, and they said that she was raped by a man in the middle of the crowd without anyone intervening. And they also said that another 16-year-old girl was also raped, but they don't have her information yet. A 26-year-old woman was reported raped at another festival. And they said that these rapes have been happening a lot more recently. And what I read on a different article that we didn't add here because it was actually in Swedish and it wasn't translating very well, but the Swedish government has actually said that in 2018 they're not going to be allowing these outdoor music festivals because of the rape epidemic that's happening in their country right now.
Which is 100% congruent with the influx of migrants coming in. The migrants are the ones doing these concert rapes. It's been happening for the last couple of years in Europe. Sweden has one of the highest per capita rates of rape in the world. Most people don't realize that. And it's directly because of this influx of migrants. You can look at how this is happening in other places. You can look at what happened in Cologne with the Cologne rape cases. Something like 300 women were sexually assaulted or raped on New Year's in 2016. But it was hidden by the media, hidden by the police, and they do the same things in Sweden because they don't want the people to get uprised about it. Just like they said with, we don't want any sort of backlash about ISIS fighters coming back. The government is afraid that people get mad about this stuff, and maybe people will at some point. But you can't even have outdoor concerts anymore because of this stuff going on. It's insane. No one's going to stand up to it.
And also keep in mind, those rapes that we just talked about, those were the ones that were reported.
Yes.
And who knows how many weren't.
You want to go into some of my stuff out of Germany now?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Germany's never usually good news either, and I don't have any good news for you either. But, there is a new report figure out of Germany from the Office of Statistics and Elections, and Frankfurt, Germany, is now the first major city of Germany where native Germans are actually a minority. 51.2% of the people living in Frankfurt now are of migrant background. Now, the biggest portion of that would be Turkish immigrants, but that can represent a wide swath of people. Bangladeshis, Pakistanis, Afghanistanis, Somalis, Libyans, Iraqis, could be from anywhere, Syrians. But yeah, this is not an isolated trend, though. It is also predicted this year, alongside Frankfurt, Augsburg, Germany, and Stuttgart will become cities where native Germans are now the minorities in those cities. And also, you look at other cities across the European continent that are also on the verge of joining them. Ethnic Dutch people will become a minority in Amsterdam this year. Ethnic Britons will become an ethnic minority in London this year. Belgians will become a minority in Brussels this year. And Swiss will become a minority in Geneva this year. Now, the report that says all this stuff actually celebrates this fact, though. They say it provides greater opportunities for social justice as they're replacing the native populations in these cities. But, yeah, that's what's going on. Germany is going to no longer be German, and this is something that should be celebrated.
And also, there are some economic factors that go along with this. 83% of German men and 78% of German women are working. But when you look at those of foreign backgrounds, it drops to only 73% of men and 59% of women.
So, and we've gone over the numbers on migrants working in general. It is super low. I mean, they're very staggering numbers. Only something like 3% of migrants even work. What was the one that you're saying, like, long-term unemployment would be?
Oh, yeah. Germany, I believe this was last week, but we didn't include it, so I guess it's relevant for this week. The German government actually released statistics saying that 80%, it was either 75% or 80% of all migrants to their country face long-term unemployment of 10 years or more. Meaning they won't get a job at all for 10 years. 80% of them.
And these people will soon find themselves majorities in German cities. People that only live off the taxpayer dollars. They receive free housing, they receive free healthcare, they receive free food. They're accommodated to all day. Because this is a great opportunity for social justice.
But they're also oppressed all day.
Yeah, that's why it's a great opportunity for social justice. What better social justice than giving your country away? Ugh. It's disgusting, but this is the trend we're seeing all across Europe. Like I just said, all these major cities, London, Amsterdam, Brussels, Geneva, they're not going to be European anymore.
I would say Trump should just take some social justice warriors and put them in the Space Corps, send them to space, but they'll probably just mess up the universe. So.
Well, I mean, there is one good news out of that. And, that's the fact that Trump's going to Poland. And
well, let me finish my last thing with Germany, and then we'll talk about Poland. Poland is good news, great news. I still want bad news, so we're going to stay in Germany for a second. So a German court in... how do you pronounce this? Where is it? Frick, I can't find it.
Are you talking about the city that it's in?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the city name either.
Man, I saw it earlier. This is weird. Okay. Oh, Wuppertal. Wuppertal. I don't know how to say it. Wuppertal is a city. It's a small city in Germany, and they recently had a court hearing over Sharia patrols. If you don't know what Sharia patrols are, they're very common in the United Kingdom. Germany also has a problem with them. They are Islamists who put on uniforms and go around yelling at people to prevent them from doing things that go against Sharia law. So they go to clubs and they condemn people for being sodomites or degenerates or something. Or they go to places where people are gambling and they shame them or yell at them or whatever. So these guys were taken to court because they were clearly violating a law in Germany which outlaws uniforms that appear threatening. You know, reminiscence of Hitler's brown shirts. These guys that went to court, they all wear high orange visibility jackets. In the back it says Sharia police on the back. So these guys come up to you and harass you and tell you what to do, all in matching uniforms, saying that they're police. So guess how the court ruled in this? It ruled that it's okay that they're okay doing this. It's okay, you know. It's okay to have Sharia patrols, Sharia police. This is the new normal. You know, they can just go through your city in uniform and tell you what to do, threaten you. And there's instances where these Sharia police things break out into violence, okay? I recommend anyone listening to go watch some Sharia police, Sharia patrol videos. They're very, very triggering.
So, what do they use instead of batons and guns? They just throw acid on you? If you're not listening to the Sharia.
Yeah. I don't know.
I have one more bad news about Germany, if you mind.
Yeah, that's fine. I won't feel sad.
Yeah. So the German Vice Chancellor, Sigmar Gabriel, he was on the news not too long ago, and when he was in reference to the unpopularity of refugees in Germany, he says that what Germany should do is actually imprison them for hate crimes, and it gets better. He says that every refugee that comes to Germany is more German than their critics.
What does being German even mean to these people?
We have a very similar story that we'll get to
in a little bit.
But
bring us up with Poland.
Right. So what I was trying to get to, and I'm sorry that I almost tried to skip over another story there.
It's all good.
But we do have some good news that's coming out of Europe, and that's Trump later this week is going to Poland before he goes to the G20 summit in Hamburg, Germany. But he's going to be going to Poland. He's going to be giving a really big speech telling European leaders to follow Poland's lead. Now, if you remember, Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic have not taken in a single refugee at all. And they're proud that they haven't done that. And they've also been the only ones that haven't had any terrorist attacks either.
Yep.
Now, Trump's telling everyone in Europe that they should be following their lead. Now, that's really, really important that he's doing that.
The European Union is taking those countries to court right now because they won't take in any refugees because there's refugee quotas for the Schengen zone.
And General McMaster has said that the main message of the speech is that America understands that its interests align with the interests of the Polish people. And I've been saying that I think it's going to be really interesting if kind of out of nowhere, Poland ends up being the United States' #1 ally in Europe. And it looks like that's kind of where we're headed here.
Potentially, yes. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to see what comes out of his trip to Poland. Probably be some good speeches from it.
Oh, I'd like to watch it.
Do you want to go into this Paris stuff that we have?
Yeah, I read this article earlier. It's kind of formatted weird, so I'll just kind of tell you what it is. So there's a new warning app that people can download on their phones. It's called No-Go Zone, which is available on Google Play Store. It currently has a rating of 4.3 out of 5 stars. Now, what it does is it tracks your location. And if you go anywhere near or into a no-go zone in Paris, it gives you an alert on your phone so that you can be aware of it and potentially leave. It also gives you...
Should we say what a no-go zone is?
Yeah, go ahead.
So a no-go zone is an area where the police no longer go that has been taken over by migrants. Sweden has a lot of these. The United Kingdom, Germany, Paris. That's why they have this app. France is a lot. But yeah, they're places that the police no longer go to because it's so violent.
Now, they said that the app itself also gives you live alerts of sexual assaults that occur in these no-go zones as well.
Yeah, they're very dangerous as far as both physical crime and rape. So,
yeah,
don't want to go into one, which is why there's an app now that prevents you from going into one.
If you're not living in one of those cities and you are planning on going to Paris anytime soon, I suggest you do download that app. That way, when you're there, if you're there, you'll at least have a little bit of level of protection before you go anywhere that you shouldn't be going.
Yes. I think I want to skip over the next story.
Okay.
Let's go to this migrants. It's all migrants every week. Let's go into what's happening with Italy.
So this is another article that I added, which is really, really unfortunate. In the last week alone, there have been over 20,000 migrants have arrived in Italy from North Africa. Now, if you remember, Enzo, a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week even, you were saying that as it gets into the summer and the waters get warm, more and more people are crossing the Mediterranean Sea.
Yes.
And that is exactly what we're seeing now. And this article that we're reading even cites that exact same example. They said that a lot of these people are being picked up by NGO boats.
These NGOs are usually German.
Yeah.
It's actually illegal to do, but no one stops them.
Yeah, and they're actually going out there and picking these people up miles offshore. That way they don't actually land on Italian soil where they can potentially be, told to leave. But Matteo Salvini, who is the leader of the Northern League Party, I guess that's in Italy, I would assume, he was telling people about the NGOs. He said they're complicit in this mass exodus and they earn from it. And also the Italian foreign minister, Angelina Alfano, has also accused charities of working with people, smuggling people in to... sorry. He's accused charities of working with people that are smuggling people into Europe. It's also gotten so bad that the Italian ambassador to Brussels has recently told the EU that Italy needs more help in redistributing migrants or they will have no choice but to close the ports.
Do you remember, you're the one that reported a couple weeks ago, also the mayor of Rome said they can no longer take in any more migrants. They have no place to put them, while they are receiving thousands every day.
And yeah, that's exactly what we did report on. And people, we tend to focus more on like Germany, Sweden, and the UK, but Italy's having it just as bad as everyone else. And if Italy has to shut down their ports...
Italy's where most of them come from.
Yeah, if Italy has to shut down their ports, then all those people have to go to other countries.
Yeah, I remember not too long ago that there was a map of the refugee boats saved at sea. And every year, the refugee boats being saved gets closer and closer to the African shoreline. They're not being saved in Italian waters. They're being saved almost as soon as they leave Africa.
The thing is, these NGOs, they coordinate with human traffickers in Libya because they go through Libya, and they usually pick them up just a couple miles off the coast, so then the coast guards don't find them and they're in international water where they can do this stuff. And yeah, it's a huge ring. They're bringing these people over in the thousands. And the thing is, these people aren't refugees. They're people from Africa that just want to come to Europe. Because they know that Germany is going to give them free healthcare and free housing and free everything.
I believe the term is economic migrants.
Yeah, they want more economics. Like they want to economically drain you. But there's so many people that say, oh, these people are a great economic boon to them, even though none of them work. And they're huge leeches. But and there are a couple countries that are standing up to it, but just it's irritating. Eventually, this stuff's not going to end well. It's not going well in Italy at the moment. I mean, there's been open violence between natives and migrants. So let's move on though. So I got this next story. Let's move on to some of the North America, South America stuff. So out of Brazil, President Michel Temer on Monday has become the country's first sitting leader to be charged with corruption. And now his entire fate of his administration is in the hands of the Brazilian Congress, which is also embedded in mass corruption. Now, if you just look at what politics in Brazil is like, it's pretty much only corruption. Here's the thing. Okay, so the Brazilian president, Michel Temer, has been accused by the chief prosecutor of Brazil of accepting billions of dollars in bribes from the world's largest meatpacking company, JBS, so they can get favorable tax breaks and loans from state banks there. This was actually leaked through some secret recordings. Now, this entire scandal is actually worth an 11.5 billion in bribes from JBS over a 9-month period, just through scheming. Now, this case will be sent, or the Brazilian lower house needs to greenlight the president's trial before it goes to the Supreme Court. Now, he has enough votes through his own party to actually block this. He needs 172. But the thing is, there's so many people that are also under investigation for corruption from his own party members, and just next year there's going to be, or I believe it's next year, they're holding elections. A lot of these people are going to be held to their constituents responsible, whether they're going to vote to send the probe into the president or not. And this president, Michel Temer, he has an all-time low approval rating of 7%. Now, you go back to last year, they impeached their previous president over more corruption cases. So the entire that was Dilma Rousseff, if you didn't know who she was. So the entire situation in Brazil is just messed up. There's so much corruption everywhere, and potentially the president will be impeached 2 times in a row now. So yeah, that's some insanity, and most people don't have any idea of Brazil, so I thought I'd bring that up. But do you want to go into this Trudeau stuff? I know we were having a good laugh about it.
Yeah, so you were mentioning earlier, Sam, about different people saying stuff, and this is when we promised to get to it. So Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada, or as Trump likes to call him, Justin from Canada, has made a statement about the immigrants coming into his country. He says, "Anytime I meet people who got to make the deliberate choice, whose parents chose Canada, I am jealous. Because I think being able to choose it, rather than being Canadian by default, is an amazing statement of attachment to Canada." So, he's jealous of immigrants.
He almost makes it sound like you're more Canadian if you're an immigrant than not. Which is kind of similar to what these people in Germany are saying as well. This mindset is, you could say, globalistic.
And he later even went on to say, he said, this was during a television interview, he said, "I always sort of laugh when you see people who are, not many of them, but intolerant, or who think, go back to your own country. No, you chose this country. This is your country more than it is for others because we take it for granted." He's saying that immigrants to Canada are more Canadian than Canadian citizens. Like,
yeah, that's what I was postulating on, and then pretty much that's what he means.
This is coming from the same guy who failed to mention Alberta when he was making the speech at the Canada 150 event.
Yeah, he seems to be more preoccupied with bringing more immigrants than even talking about the people that exist in his own country. It's insane, you know. You're more Canadian than the average native Canadian just because you declared yourself. You declare that you want to come to Canada. That's the criteria. It's insane and stupid, and it's reckless. And where does this path end? I don't know.
You know what, though? I'm okay with taking all of the refugees that come to the U.S. and sending them to Canada instead. Because Canada wants them.
Yeah, they're
Trudeau
willing to pay.
wants
They spend billions of dollars housing refugees.
But just to let you know, Enzo, those poor, starving Somali refugees are more Canadian than Canadian citizens.
Yeah, even though there's a good chance they have the attitude of that one British lady, the Swedish Somali we were talking about, Zamzam. So, let's go into the one thing I have for the Middle East, which was the Turkish military returning fire on YPG forces in Syria, and warplanes hitting Kurdish militants in Iraq as well. Now, I bring this up because the conflict between the Turks and Kurds have been ongoing for a long time. Kurdistan is a nation, but not a country. A nation refers to a group of people. The Kurds are a group of people. They're the Kurdish nation. But a country of Kurdistan doesn't actually exist. Now, if Kurdistan was to be a country, it would encompass places including Syria, parts of Turkey, parts of Iraq, parts of Iran. It's a large swath of people that are connected through their ethnic heritage. And the YPG represents Rojava, which is an independent Kurdish nation. It's technically like an anarchist society, which is very interesting. But the YPG, they fight ISIS, but also they have to fight the Turks as well. Turkish-backed forces in northern Syria have been firing artillery barrages into the YPG militia targets as of Wednesday. And yeah, I bring this up because this is a very precarious situation. Now, we support the Kurds, the YPG, the United States. We actually offered to send them weapons. Now, I know initially the YPG rejected doing this. I don't know if they have taken arms by now, but the big thing is we're also NATO allies with Turkey. And Turkey says that they are firing in on the YPG because they were taking on their ally in the Free Syria Army, which is the largest rebel army in Syria, but which is essentially also terrorists, though. And they also believe that they were in cahoots with the PKK, which is a terrorist organization that represents Kurds in southeast Turkey. So this stuff has been ongoing for a while, and just it makes the Syria picture even that much crazier, because the Turkish military is just bombing someone that's our allies, but we are also allies with Turkey. So I don't know what we do, and I personally support the Kurds 100% more than President Erdogan, the literal dictator of Turkey at this point. But yeah, I don't know what we're going to do about this situation. The entire Syria thing's messed up, and I don't even think our own government really does what we should be doing in Syria, so.
Let's move on to the final two stories that we have for this week.
I know you want to cover them both, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to cover them both here. So the first one is the United States has approved a $1 billion arms sale to Taiwan. Now, this actually goes directly against the one China policy that we have, where the United States does not actually recognize a Taiwanese government. Instead, they recognize the Chinese control over the island of Taiwan. But it seems that Trump's administration has been really pro-Taiwan independence due to some of the tweets that he's made and now this arms deal. Now, Trump, we talked about how during the campaign he wanted to list China as a currency manipulator, but he's kind of backed off of that. And when he was meeting with President Xi Jinping of China, they actually became really good friends over the course of a couple of days that they were meeting. So it appeared that U.S. relations with China were actually being restored. And including, we've talked about how we've got that beef deal that we're now selling our beef to China. We're also now selling our coal to China instead of North Korea, or instead of China buying coal from North Korea. So it appears that even though we're helping with China, this kind of goes against, something that we would normally do to stay on China's good terms. But the only thing I have to mention as well of that is that even though the arms sale was announced, there's still a 30-day review period during which Congress actually has to vote in order to halt it. Now, keep in mind, if Congress doesn't have to actually vote on it. If Congress doesn't vote at all during the 30-day period, it gets approved. They would physically have to vote in order to vote no on it.
They usually pass these things.
Yeah. And when it comes to $1 billion coming into your country, the chances of them actually voting no is extremely unlikely to begin with.
Which, I mean, I'm not against Taiwan, but this also does threaten relations with China, so it is very precarious in that sense.
And they said that the arms sale includes torpedoes, missiles, and early warning radar support, which what it's largely being used to is just modernize the island's existing defense capabilities because it's starting to get old.
Even though, essentially Taiwan exists because we have military forces in Taiwan. Mm-hmm. The second that we would leave, the Chinese would take over Taiwan, without a doubt. The Taiwan-China feud has been ongoing for decades. But, yeah, we'll have to see if that deal goes through.
Like I said, it probably will, but, yeah, we'll see. Now, the very last story that we wanted to get to today is some good news, I guess you could say. Now, we all remember learning in school about the space race against the Soviet Union. Well, it looks like there's about to be a new one, and that is the Asian space race, because Japan has announced they have plans to put a man on the moon by 2030. And that was by Japan's Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA, similar to our NASA. They said they have intentions to explore the lunar surface and will most likely form part of an international mission. So who knows, the U.S. might actually be part of that. Now, if you think about it, the U.S., like I said, we have plans to go back to the moon in 2019. In 2019. And we want to put a man on Mars by 2030. So we will have men on Mars before Japan even gets a man on the moon. Yes. And even they will have to have an international effort to do it. So that was part of what Trump was saying. He wants American dominance in space. So even if Japan does go to the moon, we still win. And also, this was something that we didn't cover because we weren't doing the show at the time. China actually announced that they have intentions to put a man on the moon by 2036, and they want to land a rover on Mars by 2020. Now, 2020 is fast approaching in space years. So China really has to step up their goal if they want to do that. And India actually became the fourth country to plant its flag on the moon in 2008 because they landed an unmanned probe. I'm sorry, and they planned to land an unmanned probe by mid-2008. Or, sorry, 2018. So, the country has yet to actually announce plans for a manned mission, even though they literally just said they plan on doing it. So, they haven't announced the actual mission. They announced their intention of having the mission. So that'll be fun to watch. I think our trip to the moon in 2019 will be a lot more fun, and our trip to Mars will be even funner. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. And to be fair, I hope the Japanese do it. I really hope they do, because they deserve a win.
Yeah. So with that, that's all our stories for the week. Are there some things that we need to talk about? We should have talked about this at the very beginning of the show.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it right now. So do you want to talk about what we're doing this Wednesday?
Yeah, you mentioned it. Go ahead.
For the midweek show, we'll be doing a midweek show like usual, but it will not be like what we usually do. It will be a fake news show in an alternate reality where Hillary Clinton's the president, and me and Bobby support Hillary Clinton as our president. So I'd imagine the show will probably go like 2 hours. It's going to be similar to the Sunday show. We're planning it out like it is a real show, but it's completely fake. Every single story is fake, and we're going to be in character the whole time. So yeah, it'll be some good satirical comedy. Hopefully it will be super funny. Hopefully I never laugh while I'm in character. But, my acting credentials, I don't think I will. So have to make sure you don't laugh either, Bobby, but that's going to be a fun, very memorable show. You definitely want to tune into that one if you don't catch our usual midweek shows. That one will be... We'll probably do another one, however this one goes. I don't know.
If it goes well, which I assume it probably will, I'd like to do at least, one maybe every 6 months or so.
That would be pretty cool. I still have to make the theme song for this. Should I say what this podcast is called?
We'll wait to release the name, but we're creating all new segment openers, all new theme songs. We've probably already put about 12 hours both individually,
yes.
So that's probably about 24
just for a
hours
joke
combined.
Podcast, but it's going to be a funny joke.
Yeah, so share it with your friends, share it with your family. It's going to be great.
That'll be a good one. Anything else, or are we good? Okay, yeah, that's been another episode of Trump Republic Radio. Oh, yes.
Say happy 4th of July.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. 4th of July is on Tuesday. Happy birthday, America.
Everybody
Happy birthday, America.
Don't
yeah.
blow up your fingers.
I didn't think about that.
Enjoy your hot
Turning
dogs.
241 years old.
241.
Yeah, be safe with fireworks. Don't religion and peace yourself.
Yeah, don't blow off your hand.
Keep in mind, there are a lot of veterans and there are a lot of dogs in your neighborhoods. So when you're launching fireworks, think of them first. A lot of them have PTSD. Dogs get scared. Veterans get scared. Look out for their interests. Other than that, have fun.
Yeah, have fun. Happy birthday, America. Long live freedom. And, yeah, that's our show for the week. Thank you for coming on, Sam and Kris, again. Always welcome whenever you want.
Yeah, stop refugees.
Good final words to live by. Yeah, have a good one. See you next week.
God bless America.